How's it going there, folks? Welcome to another fun at-home table read. Tonight, we're doing another unmade script. This time, one titled Wolverine and the X-Men from 1991. No, this is not the pilot for the animated series. It's a new thing. The script was never made. Eventually, this would become, the live-action X-Men that we got in the early 2000s. But I'm really kind of curious to see what this one is, because the X-Men scripts are usually fun, even if they didn't get made. So let's jump right in and start introducing ourselves.
Hello, I'm Mary. I will be doing action description.
I'm Erik. I'll be Wolverine.
Hi, I am Anne, and I will be Professor Xavier.
I'm Curtis. I'm going to be Cyclops.
I'm Chelsea. I'll be Jean Grey.
I'm Logan. I'm going to be Nightcrawler.
I'm Travis. I'm playing Mastermind.
All right. Well, Mary, take us away.
Wolverine and the X-Men. Screenplay by Gary Goldman. Roll credits. Exterior inner city high school day. Kids mingle in the yard at lunchtime. Outside, a short, hairy bruiser with mutton chops looks through a chain link fence. Sporting dark glasses and chomping on a cigar, Wolverine, 40, scans through the crowd. His point of view, probes and picks its way through the students. Panning, searching, racking focus. Across the way, he spots a girl. His eyes hone in on her. Wolverine glances at a rough sketch of the girl in his hand. He checks it again against the original. Kitty Pryde, pretty, coltish, chestnut hair, 16. She chats with her prettier, hippier friend Leslie. They sneak glances at Alex, an artistically sexy guy with his own sense of style.
He's in my math class.
Him? Oh, please. Look at the way he dresses.
I think he's a babe. Besides, he kind of likes me.
No doubt. Wolverine's point of view, telephoto. Leslie continues to bag on Kitty's taste in men. On the soundtrack, we hear only a loud walla of jumbled voices. Wolverine cocks his ear towards Kitty. Voices fade and blend like he's focusing through the static. Wolverine's point of view, telephoto. Kitty is approached by Rashni, a sweet but uncool Arab American girl. Leslie ignores her and turns away. We can't hear what they say until Kitty's voice finally emerges from the hubbub.
I've just been kind of busy.
Do you know what you're doing Saturday?
Kitty glances toward Leslie.
Well, Leslie and some of us were thinking of going to 2020 if you want to.
Leslie appears behind Rashni, gesturing wildly, making gagging faces. Kitty falters. The school bell rings.
That's okay. See ya.
Rashni walks off. Kitty feels rotten. Wolverine turns away and pulls a portable phone from his jacket. He pokes in a number. Kitty confronts Leslie.
Well, that was really nice.
So go out with her. Leslie expression challenges Kitty to choose between them. Kitty wimps out. Leslie walks away backward. See you after practice. I'll give you a ride.
Later.
They head off in a different direction. Wolverine speaks into a portable phone.
It's me. I found her. She's too young.
Cut to exterior high school dusk. Kitty sits on the curb, impatient. Leslie drives up, radio blaring. Alex is riding shotgun. Kitty springs to her feet.
Hi.
Sorry I'm late. I ran into Alex. We're going over to his house. Leslie nods towards the back seat. Get in. We'll drop you off on the way. Kitty is floored.
No, that's all right. I already called my mother.
You sure?
Yeah, she should be here any minute.
Okay. See you tomorrow. Kitty steps back as the car pulls away. Dejected, she trudges down the deserted street, carrying her school books. End credits. Exterior bad neighborhood night. Kitty walks home with the urban blight, wearing a long coat. She turns a corner and sees a Hispanic gang on the other side of the street. 8 teenage boys are kicking and beating an old man on the ground. Kitty hesitates and considers turning back, but one of the gang sees her, so she continues, walks briskly, looks straight ahead. The youths, now alerted, ogle her and whistle. She ignores them and speeds up. The leader, Raul, calls to her.
What's the matter, Chica? You not in the mood?
Kitty keeps walking, afraid.
Don't you like us?
She ignores them.
Hear me talking to you.
She starts across the street. The others follow. Kitty makes a quick right at the corner. Bad move. Dead end. She tries to backtrack. Too late. They've turned in on her after her. She backs up.
Look, I've got to get home.
Relax. The night is young.
He reaches for her books. She holds them tight.
Don't you want to play?
He yanks them out of her arms onto the ground.
Forget about homework.
Kitty backs away.
Please don't. Please don't.
Please don't!
Kitty backs up to a brick wall at the end of the alley. She presses herself against it. Raul stops a few feet away from her, pulls out a switchblade and clicks it open.
Now be nice.
He holds the knife to her throat and leans in to kiss her. She closes her eyes and shrinks away from him and melts into the wall like a ghost. Raul kisses the wall as Kitty's clothes fall to the ground in a heap. Interior factory night. Kitty staggers backward out of the brick wall, naked. Exterior alley. The boys look at each other, spooked, and cross themselves. Raul gingerly picks up her clothes.
Vámonos.
They dash back down the alley with Kitty's clothes. As they near the streets, Wolverine steps into the mouth of the alley and blocks their way. He is so formidable with that whole gang stops in its tracks.
Get out of the way, man. What did you do to the girl? We didn't do nothing.
Wolverine nods towards Kitty's clothes in his arms.
What's that?
Raul realizes he's in trouble. He pulls a switchblade and flicks it open.
You're old man.
The gang members pull knives in every variety. Wolverine doesn't flinch.
Nice blades. But I brought my own.
He holds up his right hand. Sink! 3 metal claws slide out between his knuckles, each a foot long. He holds up his left hand. Shink! The matching set. Raul and the boys have their sinking feeling. Wolverine smiles demonically and steps forward. Cut to interior factory. Freaked out and naked, Katie tremulously touches the brick wall. Sure enough, it's solid. Behind her, a long coat wraps around her shoulders. She spins and sees that it's Wolverine, gallantly covering her up. She shrinks away from him.
I think these are yours.
He sets her shoes and clothes on the table and walks off. Her fear turns to curiosity as he disappears into the shadows.
Thanks.
Cut to interior counselor's office at school day. Kitty enters the room.
Miss Yglesias?
Miss Yglesias, a young woman in her mid-40s, seems happy about something.
Come in, Kitty. There's a gentleman here who wants to meet you.
Kitty seems alarmed by his appearance. Pan and discover, not Wolverine, but Professor Charles Xavier, 40, completely bald, business suit and a wheelchair. Xavier exudes an intimidating intelligence like a benign Hannibal Lecter. Next to him is Jean Grey, a beautiful red-haired Grace Kelly, about 22, dressed in a casual bohemian style that makes no big deal about her curvaceous figure.
Professor Xavier runs the Xavier School for Gifted Youngsters. We're affiliated with the Exton Academy.
Kitty's eyes light up.
The Exton Academy?
Jean nods and smiles.
I don't know if you're interested in transferring.
Are you kidding?
Cut to exterior, the Exton Academy day. A checker cab drives into the historic pastoral campus and passes the elegant hand-painted sign, Exton Academy, founded in 1783. Interior checker cab day. Kitty sits in the back seat and eagerly soaks it in. Exterior Xavier Mansion Day. The taxi pulls to a stop in front of a huge Gothic stone mansion covered with ivy. It is more than a little sinister. They see the modest sign next to the door, Xavier School for Gifted Youngsters.
This is the place.
Jean Grey and two other students come out from the front door to greet them. Scott Summer, 22, handsome, brooding, wears wraparound shades. The Jason Wingard, 19, hypnotic eyes, street attitude, thin, trying too hard to prove something.
Hi, Kitty. Did you have any trouble finding us? Nope. We just followed your instructions.
Jean pays the driver as Kitty gawks at the grounds.
Come on, I'll show you your room.
Jean picks up a small bag in either hand and starts to lead Kitty inside. Interior X-Mansion Day. Jean and Kitty enter the cavernous entrance hall. Kitty is intimidated by the opulence and scale.
This is the professor's home. We're all in special program that he runs personally.
They head up the grand staircase.
You'll be attending regular classes at the main campus that you passed on the way in. Jean, how old are you? 22. I just graduated from Holyoke.
Scott brings her luggage inside and sets it on the foyer. Kitty takes notice.
Is he in the program? Yeah, that's Scott.
Kitty looks back at him as they reach the second story.
This is your room.
Interior Kitty's room day, a musty corner room in pure Victorian style.
It's like a museum.
The lace curtains automatically swish to one side of the window, letting in sunlight.
The professor's grandmother lived here when she was a girl.
Jean lifts Kitty's bags and objects on the desk, move aside to make room. Jean sets down the bags in the space just cleared. Kitty hesitates. Did she just see that?
Why don't you get unpacked and have a look around? The bathroom is down the hall, and I'll take you to see the professor in a little while. Great, thanks.
Jean leaves. Kitty sits on the bed, bounces on it, looks out the window. Giraffes and elephants graze on the savannah. She steps into the other window and looks out. Skiers solemn downhill on the Alps. Perplexed, she turns and sees what looks like a furry creature scurry past her door. Its long tail is the last part to disappear. She hurries into the hallway to get a better look. Hallway. She sees only Jason playing billiards by himself.
Hey, how's it going?
Did you see some kind of animal out here?
He looks at her like she's crazy.
No.
Kitty looks away, puzzled, just as Scott reaches the top of the stairs with two heavy pieces of her luggage.
Oh, Scott, hi. My room's right over here.
Kitty runs ahead and opens the door to her room. Interior Kitty's room. He squeezes past her through the threshold.
Wow, cool shades.
What do you want these?
Can I try them on?
And before he can stop her, she grabs the sunglasses from his face. A powerful red laser beam projects from Scott's eyes, buzzing deep and loud. It sweeps across the room, blasting a path of destruction. Scott grabs his glasses from Kitty in a panic and slaps them on his face. The lenses block the beam. Silence is restored. Kitty is breathless.
They're not your stuff.
Mortified, Kitty runs out of the room. Corridor. She runs right into a spidery fellow with a bluish furry skin, sharp teeth, pointy ears, and long tail. This is Kurt Wagner, 20, poetic, kind, and insecure. Actually, he's not bad looking in a very weird way. Kitty screams. She holds her arms and tries to comfort her.
It's okay, Kitty. Don't scream.
Kitty pushes him away and runs to Jean, who's just rushed over.
What is going on in this place?
Jean searches for a good answer.
We better go see the professor.
Cut to interior library day. Xavier rolls his wheelchair from behind the desk as Kitty enters. The X-Men take a seat. Kurt squats on the sliding bookshelf ladder.
Apparently you've had a chance to meet. I would have preferred to make the introductions.
Wolverine lumbers in and plops into a large chair.
You remember Wolverine, don't you?
Kitty recognizes him. This guy is really hairy, and it all starts to click into place.
Kitty was cornered by a gang. She escaped by phasing through a brick wall. That is to say, she passed through solid matter.
The X-Men are intrigued.
That wasn't the first time, was it?
I'm not sure.
Did something happen? Say, about a month ago?
Well, one night I had this dream that I fell through my bed and I woke up on the floor downstairs.
That must have been why I sensed you the first time.
You sensed me?
Kitty, I look for people with unusual abilities. People like ourselves. No, not freaks.
I didn't say anything.
I'm a telepath.
Oh.
Each of us has some genetic singularity. Jean is telekinetic. She can move things with her mind. Wolverine has a keen senses and accelerated healing factor.
You can walk through walls.
So you tricked me into coming here.
You have an amazing talent, Kitty. It should be developed.
She shakes her head.
I just want to forget any of this ever happened.
That's how you feel? Fine. It's entirely up to you.
I just don't think I belong here.
You don't have to apologize.
A beat.
Well, I guess I'll call a cab.
She stands but doesn't seem so eager to leave.
Kitty, since you're here, are you sure you wouldn't like us to help you phase one more time?
Cut to interior danger room day. A tall, empty room like a basketball court filled with gymnastics and athletic equipment. A large press box window overlooks the area 18 feet up. Xavier rolls in, accompanied by Jean, Wolverine, Jason, and Kitty.
So far, your power is completely involuntary. My goal in working with you would be to help you achieve conscious control.
How would you do that?
Stand over there, next to that wall.
Kitty walks to the designated area where iron shackles are riveted into the wall. Jason and Jean go with her.
A synaptic path must be forged to the source of your power deep within your brain.
Jason and Jean clamp Kitty's ankles and wrists into the shackles.
Look at yourself in the mirror. Remember what you're wearing.
Why?
To avoid embarrassment.
As Kitty looks at herself in the mirror, Jean and Jason finish shackling her. Kitty tests the manacles. Sure enough, she's locked to the wall. Wolverine picks up a longbow and an arrow and steps back and stands in front of Kitty. He strings the arrow in the bow and gets ready to shoot.
This isn't dangerous, is it?
No more than it needs to be.
Xavier nods to Wolverine, who raises the bow and pulls back the bowstring.
Hey, wait a second. Is this some kind of joke?
Wolverine takes solid aim. Nobody smiles.
Hey, I don't want to do this. Stop.
Terrified, Kitty looks to Jean for support.
Jean, help me.
Jean looks away. Kitty stares wide-eyed at Wolverine. Thwing! The arrow flies. Kitty clenches her eyes shut. Thwack! The arrow goes through her throat and lodges in the wall behind her. Then the arrow stops vibrating. Kitty opens her eyes uncertainly. She apparently feels no pain, even though the arrow is sticking through her throat.
Don't move. Relax. Breathe deeply.
Kitty stands perfectly still and starts to breathe slower. She's not hurt.
Now step away from the wall.
Kitty is afraid to move.
Do it.
Kitty gathers her resolve and pulls forward. Her throat slides along the arrow shaft until the feathers disappear behind her. Her ankles and wrists pass through the iron shackles.
Now, hold on to this sensation. Have you got it?
She nods almost imperceptibly.
Congratulations. You phased.
With your clothes on.
Kitty takes a breath and relaxes, but just for a second, then anger rises up in her and she charges at Wolverine.
You could have killed me, you asshole! What if I couldn't do it, huh? I would have died!
Everyone is holding back laughter.
What's wrong with you people? I'm out of here!
She heads for the open door.
Kitty! Kitty!
Jean looks at the door and it slams in Kitty's face.
Will you just chill?
Let me out!
Pull the arrow from the wall.
I don't have to do what you say.
Just do it.
She reluctantly goes to the wall and reaches for the arrow. Her hand goes through it. She tries again, mystified.
Am I still phasing?
The arrow turns into a red rose.
It's a mental image. Yeah, it's a mental image. Compliments of Jason.
Kitty looks at Jason in wonder. He smiles boastfully. Next to him, Wolverine holds the actual arrow in his hand. Cut to interior dining room night. The professor and all the X-Men sit around the table. From the way Kurt looks at Kitty, he seems he has a crush on her. She's engrossed in the discussion.
Are there a lot of other mutants out there?
Statistically, there must be thousands, but only a few are aware of the powers.
And they're not all nice guys.
That's why we're here. To keep them in line.
That's one reason.
Pass the corn, please.
Without being touched, the plate of corn slides down the table and stops in front of Scott.
I started the school originally so people like us would have a place in the world. So we could be ourselves.
Kitty contemplates this strange family that she's about to join. Cut to exterior X Mansion basketball court day. Close on a bouncing basketball. On the soundtrack, a whistled rendition of the sweet George Brown. It's Scott, Jason, and Kitty versus Kurt, Wolverine, and Jean. Jean grimaces with frustration, and the sunglasses collapse as if smudged by telepathic thumbs.
Take off your glasses.
What?
I want to see what you look like.
This is what I look like.
She sits next to him on the piano bench. Reflects in the ruby quartz lenses, she reaches out for the frames. Without thinking, he grabs her wrists hard.
I'll do it.
He lets go of her and slowly removes his shades. His eyelids are shut tight. His face is tense. She looks at him lovingly, touching his face, his eyelids.
Relax.
She smooths out his wrinkles, leans closer. He feels her breath. Abruptly, he backs away and puts on his shades.
Seen enough?
His face reverts to a hard mask, hidden behind dark, reflecting lenses. She looks at him, trying to find the person who was there a moment ago. He turns back to the piano and begins playing. Jean wants to say something, but she just goes back to the bust. Cut to interior kitchen night. Alone, Kurt dances and makes himself a peanut butter sandwich. Peanut butter jelly and banana sandwich. Oh, that's good. And he's completely mobile in 3 dimensions, jumping from countertops to the back of chairs. He pulls jars from the shelves and juggles them into his routine, using his tail as an additional arm. He even makes a dance out of intentionally slipping on a banana peel, causing it to fly into the garbage. Kitty walks in and watches secretly. She's surprised at his grace, his brilliance. He sees her and stops abruptly.
Sorry, I was just coming to get a soda.
It's in the fridge.
As she opens the fridge, he gets a glass for her and sets it on the counter. He moves away from the glass and she picks it up. Kitty realizes that Kurt is even more nervous than she is. She tries to find something to say.
Have you been here a long time?
About 5 years.
How do you like it?
Well, it's a lot better than where I came from.
He edges towards the door. Uncomfortable silence.
Well, yeah.
Yeah.
Cut to interior supermarket day. Wolverine rolls a shopping cart down an aisle, buying groceries for the household. Jason reads a copy of the Star.
You see this, Chewie? They sold a painting for $50 million. You think this piece of shit's worth $50 million?
Jason shows Wolverine a photo of the Van Gogh sunflowers.
I don't know. I think it's pretty.
In the background, a woman runs down the aisle screaming. A moment later, a rhinoceros lopes down the aisle after her.
We'll cut it out.
Jason loads up on 6 packs of beer.
You dig art so much, Hairball. Let's go down to the museum and score a few remembrance for us. It'd be easy.
Too easy.
Frustrated, Jason drops the wrinkled newspaper into somebody else's cart.
I don't get you. Why do you want to be good?
Because it's harder.
Wolverine puts some shaving cream in the cart. Cut to interior linen closet day. Jean shows Kitty a closet filled with various athletic wear, all with the same color scheme, like at the UCLA store. Jean pulls out a few items and hands them to Kitty.
Here, these ought to fit.
Kitty unfolds a tank top and sees that it's emblazoned with an X logo.
Suit up and come to the danger room.
Jean walks on. Kitty contemplates her selections. Cut to interior corridor to danger room day. Kitty walks down the empty hallway dressed in her workout outfit with the X logo. She gets to the set of large closed doors. She makes sure her tights are on straight. Then, with a certain resolve, she pulls open the door. Interior danger room day. The X-Men are warming up. Each wears a different combination of X-wear, which is as close to costumes as we're going to get in this movie. Their nom de guerre are stenciled on their backs. Scott is Scott, Cyclops. Kurt is Kurt. Jason is Mastermind. Jean is Marvel Girl. And Wolverine is Wolverine. Kitty finds her cohorts unexpectedly serious and focused. Jean, Marvel Girl, floats on an iron plate with a wire obstacle course. Kurt does a spectacular gymnastics routine on an elaborate system of rings, trapeze, wires, and scaffolds that now fills most of the space in the room. He works his way up and down. Note, we're inventing a new sport here. Moreover, by shooting and editing these stunts like they do in Hong Kong, we can convincingly portray a new kind of superhero. So when you imagine these acrobatic moves, endow them with a little extra magic. Scott, Cyclops, wears a special visor that he has adjusted. His beam flares and narrows. Wolverine squats and stretches. He seems relaxed. Jason, Mastermind, shadow boxes. Xavier sits in the elevated control booth and addresses the X-Men on the intercom.
Take your places.
The X-Men stand in formation on the court. As we watch them in close-up, Xavier's voice resonates within their heads.
Today's assignment is to get to the key and rescue the princess. Wolverine is the gatekeeper.
A large iron key is suspended from the ceiling, 30 feet up. The matching lock is on the far wall at shoulder height. A piece of paper with the words, "Princess in here," is taped to the wall with an arrow pointing to the lock. On Xavier, his lips don't move.
Whoever saves the princess will be executed.
Executed.
God. Excused from their chores for a week.
It's quite brutal there, Xavier. The X-Men reacted like this for a prize worth fighting for.
Countdown begins now.
May the
It is
odds
the
be
danger.
ever in your favor. The X-Men get ready for the kickoff. Wolverine stands with his back to the goal and makes taunting faces at the others.
What do I do? Try to stay alive.
The room begins to hum and vibrate from the numerous motors which gear up for operation. The lightning becomes more dramatic. Kitty is frightening. A bell rings. The danger room transforms into a life-size video pinball game. Hatches open in the walls and floors. Guns and launchers slide out. Spikes, saw blades, and tongues of flames are ripped randomly from all surfaces. The room attacks. Projectiles are fired at Scott, Cyclops, and Scott Cyclops, his visor opens like an expert marksman. He blasts the objects one at a time with short, precise bursts. Jean diverts a rain of darts. They lodge into the wall. Mastermind rolls, tumbles, and dodges the projectiles. Kitty hides behind the others, petrified. Kurt heads for the key near the ceiling, swinging through the elaborate jungle gym. The room forces him to run the obstacle course. Poles slide in and out of the wall. He swings from bar to bar, leaps, lands on the tightrope, bounces up, somersaults, grabs the tightrope, and on his way down, spins around like a propeller, flies through the air, 6 half gainer, and lands on the tiny platform halfway up to the rest. Wolverine singles out Mastermind with a friendly, sadistic smile and stalks him. Mastermind retreats. Jean sees Mastermind in trouble. She deters him with some of the projectiles aimed at her so that they go towards Wolverine. He takes evasive action. Scott Cyclops blasts one of the launchers with his beam. Kitty, an 8-foot automaton, rolls out of the alcove and moves towards her. It looks like R2-D2's big brother. Then it spouts blades that start to spin. Kitty backs away from the fearsome machine. It follows her. Kurt leaps from the trapeze to trapeze, milliseconds ahead in the projectiles. Part of the scaffolding collapses. He breaks his fall by grabbing a rod with his tail. He has to slip between 2 slabs that are about to crush him. He darts through the last instant, and his tail whips to safety with 1 nanosecond before it would have been clipped. Wolverine corners Mastermind. Shriek! His claws split Mastermind's shield into 2 useless halves. As Wolverine laughs, he suddenly finds himself in a small empty room with white walls. Hears the sound of the danger room, but he can see nothing. He looks around confused. Kitty keeps retreating from the relentless automaton, which grinds a wooden post to sawdust. Jean sees that Kitty is in a panic.
Kitty, phase! I can't!
She keeps backing up. Wolverine in the imaginary blank room, he sniffs the air. He listens carefully. He reaches out and pulls Mastermind into the white room.
Mastermind, you're frozen for 2 minutes.
Bonk! As the white walls dissolve into the danger room, Wolverine smiles and releases Mastermind, who trudges to a corner. A penalty clock starts counting down from 2 minutes. Kitty, the automaton, forces her against the wall with a ladder. Kitty climbs the ladder backwards and makes it to a ledge just as the vicious blades chew the ladder to sawdust. Kitty stands on the ledge as the automaton buzzes below. Kurt makes it to the ceiling. Hanging by one arm, grabs the key. Instantly, solid iron plates drop around him from above, forming a cage. Kurt bangs on the metal.
Hey, up here I've got the key.
Scott Cyclops looks up at the blast and small hole in the cage. Kurt drops the key down to Kitty. She catches it.
Kitty, throw it here.
Before she can throw, an encroaching line of gunfire forces her to sidestep along the ledge.
Kitty, phase!
Kitty, the key.
In a panic, she throws the key to Scott Cyclops, but Wolverine bats it up into the air. It looks like he's going to catch it on its way down. The key just hovers in the air and floats over to Jean and plants itself in her hand. At that moment, the floor under Jean starts moving. It's a rolling belt. Jean's legs slide out from under her. She's belly flops. The key bounces away. The belt carries her backwards and drops her into a pit of 12 feet deep. Scott Cyclops runs to the pit and kneels down to rescue Jean. Wolverine dives for the key, but Kurt's tail snags it first. Kurt runs for the princess. Wolverine tackles him. The two of them engage in martial art battle. Wolverine's power versus Kurt's agility. Scott Cyclops extends his arm to Jean, but it doesn't reach.
Lift yourself up.
Jean tries. She levitates a foot, but it's not enough. Kitty is forced to the end of the ledge by gunfire.
Phase, you morons.
A buzzer sounds and the gunfire stops at her shoulder.
Kitty, you're out of the game.
Mastermind looks at his penalty clock just a few seconds to go. Jean strains and levitates herself 3 feet and grabs Scott Cyclops' hand. He pulls her out of the pit. Wolverine places his fist under Kurt's chin, arching his eyebrow. Kurt politely hands him the key.
Looks like I get the princess.
Wolverine looks at his hand. The key glows red hot. Wolverine shouts with pain and throws the key into the air. Mastermind snatches it with a smile and holds it comfortably.
Ooh, when you're hot, you're hot.
Mastermind runs for the princess. Wolverine, out of position, grabs Scott Cyclops and holds his claws to his throat.
Mastermind!
Mastermind already has the key in the lock when he turns and sees Wolverine holding Scott Cyclops.
Cut his throat.
Be my guest.
Mastermind turns the key, light flash, music plays, the danger room deactivates. Cut to interior den day. It's Miller time, and the X-Men and Xavier lounge around with snacks and drinks. Xavier, like a football coach, replays the mistakes from the danger room exercise. On TV, we see Kurt getting trapped in the cage. Xavier freezes the image and points with a laser pointer.
Kurt, you were excellent, but in the future, expect any valuable target to be booby-trapped.
On TV, we see Kitty retreat in panic with the automaton. On the couch, she hides her head, embarrassed.
Kitty, what happened?
I told you, she's not ready.
If I couldn't phase, it would have killed me.
It just takes practice. Pardon me. If you work hard, it'll become automatic.
Xavier cues up Jean's feeble efforts to levitate.
Jean, you have to increase your psi force. It means more time in the weight room. And Scott, you left yourself wide open while you tried to rescue Jean. Besides, she was in no particular danger, and you should have secured the key first.
Yes, sir.
The climactic moment replays. Wolverine threatens to kill Scott, and Jason turns the key.
And the winner is Jason, who is excused from chores for a week.
Jason gloats.
Of course, Scott is dead.
Jason sees that everyone looks at him with disapproval.
It's just a game.
It's also a test of loyalty.
If it was real, I would have helped him.
The group seems dubious.
I would have.
While your friends are doing their chores, Jason, you're going to be sweating it out in the danger room with me. We're going to practice teamwork.
Jason scowls and sulks. Cut to interior Porsche dealership day. In the foreground, a red Porsche convertible. In the background, Jason speaks to 2 salesmen. Jason wears sunglasses and a fancy Italian suit. Salesman 1 finishes counting a stack of $100 bills. He piles that stack on top of 6 others.
It's all there.
You double checked?
Don't worry about us.
I just don't want there to be any misunderstanding later on.
Thanks for being so concerned.
Salesman 2 hands Jason the keys.
Keys, your receipt, and your change.
He drops some coins in Jason's hands.
And drive safely.
Jason walks out. We stay with the salesman.
Little Meshuggah putz. I hope he breaks his neck.
They watch him get into the car and drive away. Salesman 2 picks up the money.
Where do you think he gets it?
Who cares?
Salesman 2 glances at the cash and does a double take. Close on money. The stacks of $100 bills are now stacks of $1 bills. Cut to interior Jean's room day. Jean is getting dressed. Kitty is stretched out on her bed reading L, listening to music.
I'm just not sure I fit in. Give it a chance. My first week, I thought I joined the circus. Why do you stay here? I mean, you don't have to. I'll tell you the truth. When I went away to college, I was never coming back. But If you want to fit in, you have to hide who you are. You have to lie to your friends. You can't talk about the most important thing in your whole life.
Jean zips up the back of her dress telekinetically.
Out there, I was just a pretty girl. Here, I can be myself.
The phone rings. Jean floats it to her hand.
Hello? Where are you? What car?
She steps to the window and looks out. Her jaw drops.
You gotta see this.
Kitty runs to the window. Jason drives up to the mansion in his Porsche convertible, talking on the car phone.
Oh my God! Where did you get that?
He stops under Jean's window and hangs up the phone.
Anybody want to go for a ride? Anybody else?
Cut to exterior country road day. The wind blows in Jean's hair as she and Jason speed down a scenic winding road in his Porsche. Jason drives like a madman. He turns into a tiny side street. Exterior panoramic overlook day. Jason's Porsche arrives at the high cliff above a crashing Pacific seascape. Jean is totally confused.
Where are we? This sure isn't Kansas.
Something I dreamed of.
The lighting changes and the sun is now setting over the ocean.
Or is Paris more romantic?
I've never been to Paris.
Suddenly, they're parked in front of the Eiffel Tower, and Jason is now wearing a beret. Jean laughs. Jason leans over to kiss her. She turns away. He kisses her neck.
Jason, don't.
You're the most beautiful girl I've ever met.
And you're a really nice guy.
He persists.
Jason! Jason!
Whoa!
She opens the door and bolts out of the car. They are suddenly parked next to some dumpsters behind the supermarket. He is wearing blue jeans, not a fancy Italian suit.
What is your problem? I can give you anything you want. All Scott can do is blow things up.
But he doesn't.
Jason hides shame with anger.
We better get back. The professor's calling.
Screw the professor and his arm.
He starts the engine. She drops into her seat and he peels away before she can even get her other foot in the car. As they drive away, a disgusting vagrant steps out from the dumpster, flipping Jean off and waggles his tongue obscenely. Jean is appalled. Then she sees Jason smirk to himself.
You're not funny.
Cut to exterior X Mansion dusk. The Porsche races down the drive and screeches to a stop in front of the X-Men, who all wait near the van, dressed for some occasion. They exchange glances in reaction to Jason's roadster and obvious anger between him and Jean.
Nice wheels, Jason. What is it really? A Hyundai?
You want to borrow it sometime? Maybe you can get laid.
It hasn't exactly helped you.
Jason lunges for Scott. Wolverine steps between them.
Get in the van. We'll be right out. The professor wants to see you.
I'm scared.
Cut to interior Xavier's library day. Jason stands before Xavier and Wolverine.
Look, if you think I've committed a crime, call the cops.
We police ourselves.
Jason, what you've done isn't just wrong. Puts everything we've worked for in jeopardy. What if people found out about us? We're not ready to risk exposure.
Oh, now you're laying a guilt trip on me.
Xavier and Wolverine look at each other in frustration.
We're gonna be late.
Cut to interior X-Van on the road night. Xavier and the X-Men are packed into a van. Jason sulks. Scott drives.
I hope this speech is good, because we're missing an episode of The Simpsons.
I said Yglesias.
To be a good speech. Thomas Prince is a brilliant orator.
But you disagree with everything he said.
Then why is he dragging us to see him?
His ideas are dangerous, and he's a very ambitious man.
Cut to exterior suburban concert hall night. The X-Van pulls into the outdoor parking lot surrounding the small auditorium. The marquee announces Thomas Prince, and in smaller letters, the Citizen Crusade. Cut to exterior parking lot night. The X-Men roll Xavier through the parking lot towards the concert hall. Kurt is covered up with a high collar, hat, and sunglasses. They are among a surprisingly diverse group. Your Aryan racist core membership in their American cars, yuppies and Volvos and Acuras, and some intellectuals, some hardworking Asians, even some middle class blacks. In short, anybody who thinks they're better than others. The different types eye each other apprehensively.
Remember, we're just here to observe. Right, Logan?
Hey, I never start anything.
The Prince motorcade pushes through the crowd next to X-Men. His limousine is protected from the front and the back by truckloads of uniformed neo-Nazi citizens from Prince's crusade. They wear heavy boots and carry clubs. Interior limo night, Thomas Prince sits in the back, his better looking, more commanding, and more charismatic than JFK. Sits next to him in his chief of security, an elegant and statuesque African-American woman named Atalanta. Prince looks through his window and sees a group of nonviolent protesters who carry signs denouncing Thomas Prince and his ideas. Never again. No more genocide. The meek shall inherit the earth. There's room for everyone. Peace on earth.
This is good. Means they take us seriously.
The angry protesters press their signs close to his tinted window.
I think we should respond.
She grins and picks up a walkie-talkie.
Code 4, snap, crackle, pop.
Exterior parking lot. The motorcade stops. Atalanta steps out of the limo. 50 citizens pile out of the trucks. They're surrounded and intimidate the protesters. The X-Men watch the confrontation unfold. Atalanta shoves a big protester. The protester takes the bait and throws a punch. Atalanta grabs his fist and breaks his arm. The goons draw their clubs in unison and viciously beat the protesters. Bones snap, teeth are bashed, skulls are dented. Atalanta does some vicious bone crunching with her bare hands. Interior limo, Prince enjoys watching. Exterior parking lot. Almost instinctively, Wolverine and Kurt rush into the fray, pulling citizens away from their victims. For Wolverine, fighting regular people is child's play. Jean sees a citizen beating a fallen woman. She floats a pen out of his shirt pocket and pokes him in the eye. Scott lifts his glasses and lasers the clubs from several attackers with short bursts. Interior limo, Prince's eyes widen as he sees Jean and Scott display their powers. He gets a good look at Kurt. Exterior parking lot, Kurt dodges punches and cleverly thwarts goons, much like Charlie Chaplin and Harpo Marx used to frustrate their big enemies. Wolverine bashes a few citizens with Peace on Earth's picket sign. Then he comes up behind a tall citizen who's beating a protester.
Hey, bub. Now it's your turn.
He pulls the citizen away and is surprised to see that it's a woman. Atalanta. He hesitates. She bashes him in the face, karate style, and follows that up with a powerful combinations. He has no choice but to slug her in the gut. To his utter amazement, this broad keeps on coming, trades punches, blocks him his best shots, and gives as good as she gets. Interior limo, Prince watches intrigued. Exterior parking lot, the police finally arrive and separate the fighters, including Wolverine and Atalanta, who fiercely glares at each other, daring the other to go on.
Break it up! Break it up!
As Wolverine reluctantly backed away, he and Atalanta exchange a smoking look that promises a rematch. Wolverine rejoins Xavier, who also stares at Atalanta with interest.
I didn't start it.
Limo. As Prince's limo glides by, he gets a good look at Xavier. Sensing him, Xavier turns and looks directly at Prince. Cut to interior theater night. The theater and stage have been set up in the modern version of Nazi rally of the 1930s. Citizens in uniform stand guard. Inner circle citizens sit in hierarchy Tears. Atalanta occupies the number 2 seat. Prince speaks at the podium. He is dwarfed by 50-foot tall live video images of himself, which is displayed on the screen behind him. A la Citizen Kane. His deep, resonated voice echoes through the hall.
5 billion people inhabit our little planet, but 20% of us produce 95% of the world's goods. And what, my friends, do the others produce? Just one thing: hungry children. Who will protect more hungry children? Who will produce more hungry children?
Prince looks out at the crowd. His followers listen, enthralled. Then he sees Xavier and the X-Men. For the rest of his speech, it seems that Prince is focusing on them, singling them out.
Of course, all men are brothers. But are we obligated to feed and clothe them? Should we give them our homes and our jobs? Should we work twice as hard so they don't have to work at all?
The crowd murmurs in agreement. Prince lowers his voice.
Doesn't seem quite fair, does it? I think the best way to help the weak is to say, brother, I will not carry your burden any farther. The kindest thing we can do for all humanity may be to turn away. Because citizens, the strong will always survive. This is natural. It's right. This is the law of the jungle.
The audience bursts into waves of cheering and applause. Cut to interior auditorium night. The X-Men are proceeding towards the exit along with the crowd.
It's scary. They love him.
Sure, he tells them they're great.
Atalanta and 4 armed citizens march into their path and block the way. She and Wolverine glower at each other. Then she addresses Xavier.
Mr. Prince would like to invite you to his dressing room. All of you.
Xavier assesses the implied threat. He looks at his watch.
Sorry, there was a bug. I think we have a minute.
Cut to interior Prince's dressing room night. Coat off, tie loosened. Prince washes his face at the sink. Atalanta enters.
Tom, they're here.
Show them in.
Prince dries his face and hands sets down the towel. The X-Men enter.
Come in, come in. Have a seat. Thomas Prince.
Xavier shakes his hand perfunctorily.
What do you want, Mr. Prince?
Prince signals the citizens and they leave.
Couldn't help noticing you and your friends outside. I felt a certain kinship, and I wanted to meet you.
He waits for the door to close.
After all, there aren't that very many of us.
Prince locks them in the eye and makes sure his veiled meaning does not elude them.
Atalanta, meet Professor Xavier. Charles Xavier.
Xavier is unsettled by Prince's unexpected knowledge.
Atalanta is also one of the family.
Atalanta breaks into a sly and wicked grin.
I see a certain resemblance.
Nobody smiles back.
Look, don't get hung up on my speeches. They're just the means to an end.
What end is that? Genocide?
A world where the most gifted are in charge.
Jason is fascinated.
My supporters think that means them. But you're the type of person I've been trying to reach.
Only we're not interested in being in charge. Let's go.
Xavier turns his wheelchair around and the X-Men stand up.
We should be working together, Xavier.
Xavier looks back.
You won't succeed.
Prince and Xavier stare at each other in a frightening test of wills. Xavier turns and leaves. The X-Men follow him into the corridor.
My offer stands. There's a place here for all of you.
Jason glances back for a second, and Prince catches his gaze. Jason tears himself away. Atalanta prepares to close the door, but something catches her attention in the hallway. She looks into the shadow and finds a sweet, handsome, innocent 12-year-old boy, Nazi youth, backed into a corner. She pulls him into the prince's dressing room.
Look what I found listening at your door.
Atalanta firmly holds the trembling boy.
I wasn't listening, Mr. Prince, honest. I think you're the best. My whole family does, and I just wanted to tell you that we agree with everything you say.
Prince steps close.
Do you agree that the less productive people should be exterminated?
Yes, sir. The inferior people.
Prince cradles the boy's head in his hand and smiles.
You are the inferior people.
He breaks his neck. Cut to interior X van night, driving home in silence and dread oncoming headlights. Scott tries to be encouraging.
At least now we know he exists.
But we don't know what he can do.
Sensing Xavier's concern, the X-Men are not reassured. Cut to interior locker room, danger room day. The X-Men are putting on their workout uniforms. The girls and boys are separated by a screen.
You know, I think we ought to reconsider what Prince was saying last night.
About joining the Citizens Crusade.
About the law of the jungle.
The law of the jungle says I could eat you for dinner.
Everybody laughs except Jason.
Come on, Prince is no dummy. He made a fortune in the metal business.
And what does that prove?
The X-Men drift into the danger room as they finish suiting up.
Somebody's got a pretty face. They become a model and a cash in, right? If somebody's an athlete, they play ball and get rich.
Get the idea.
So this is insane. We're better than the people out there, but instead of living like kings, we sit here hiding like there's something wrong with us.
Jason points to Kurt.
You fuzzy. If you had money, you'd have babes crawling all over your hairy carcass, and they wouldn't care if you're blue, red, striped, or a polka dot.
Yes, and do you have enough to eat? Do you have a nice place to stay? Do you have friends that you can depend on?
Jason smirks dubiously.
We might think you're a dickhead, but we're still your friends.
So be grateful.
I'm talking like a normal, logical person. I don't want to be a saint.
There's not much chance of that, Jason.
They all look up at Xavier, who sits on the control booth.
Take your positions. Our work is no longer theoretical.
Cut to interior Jean's studio night. Jean leads Scott to a pedestal with his portrait bust. It is covered with cheesecloth. She is nervous about exposing her work.
Don't say anything, okay? Give it a chance.
I'm sure I love it.
It still needs to be fired.
We hold on her face as she pulls off the shroud. He doesn't say anything. His face is stiff.
You don't like it.
The bust. Scott is portrayed without his sunglasses. His eyes are open. His expression is relaxed and blissful, as if he's looking at a loved one. It's a far cry from the anguished character we know. Back to scene.
What's this supposed to mean?
Well, I don't want you to be so unhappy.
He glares at her coldly.
You don't like me the way I am? Too bad. Learn to live with it.
He turns and stalks out of the studio.
Scott, damn it, wait!
Into your den. The other X-Men look over as the door slams open and Scott storms off. Jean runs after him.
Scott!
He doesn't turn around. She stands in the doorway, devastated. She sees the others looking at her. Jason stands to console her.
Jean?
She signals him not to approach.
It's nothing.
She breaks into tears and runs upstairs. Hold on, Jason. Cut to exterior grounds night. We find Scott kneeling on the ground, staring up at the stars with his sunglasses off and his fists clenched. A red beam needles deep into the space. Bzzah! Xavier rolls out into the veranda and watches, sharing his pain.
Scott, don't do this.
Scott's face is contorted with effort.
I have to control it.
Scott struggles for a few seconds and sags, exhausted, closing his eyes and shutting off the beam.
Come here, son.
Scott gets up and slumps to the chair next to Xavier.
For years, I tried to walk. My mind was so powerful, it seemed a pretty simple thing, just regenerate a few nerve cells in my spine. Every day I spent hours That's all I thought about. What a beautiful life I could have. If only.
Xavier recalls his great sorrow.
After I gave up, that's when I started the school. And you know what I think about now?
Scott looks at him.
What a beautiful life I have.
But what if I hurt her? Couldn't live through that again.
You're already hurting her. And yourself.
Cut to interior Jean's room night. Jean cries on her bed. There's a soft knock on the door.
Who is it?
It's me.
What do you want?
I need to talk to you.
She sits up, wipes her eyes, looks at herself in the mirror.
All right, just a minute.
She makes herself pretty, straightens the bed telekinetically, and opens the door. Scott stands there. He doesn't say anything.
Can I come in?
She gestures for him to enter. He walks in. She closes the door. He speaks with difficulty.
I'm sorry. I love you.
A long look, then he kisses her. She accepts the first gentle kiss, almost swooning, then responds with a flood of passion.
Oh, Scott, I love you. I love you.
She pulls him down to the bed. He is swept away as they start to undress each other. Jean's gaze passes over a mirror with their reflection. Something catches her eyes. She looks back. There's something wrong with this picture. In the mirror, the man she embraces does not look like Scott. His back is different. His clothes are different. His hair is different. She stops responding.
What's wrong?
Scott looks at Jean and sees what she is looking at in the mirror. He turns to see what she's looking at. In the mirror, Jean embraces Jason, not Scott. They're looking at their reflections in the mirror. Then Jean and Jason turn from their reflections to face each other. Camera pans to the real people, and Jean finds herself actually holding Jason, looking at him in the face. She trembles with shame and rage.
I do love you. I'm not lying.
With a roar, she sends him flying all the way across the room. He smashes against a wall.
How did you do this to me?
He starts to get up.
Let me explain.
She sends every object in the room flying at him. Bottles, furniture, drawers, mirrors, books. The noisy barrage knocks him to the floor. He holds his arms in front of his face. Jean attacks him mercilessly. When she runs out of objects to throw, she flees the room. Hallway, the X-Men arrive in response to the fracas. Wolverine looks at her concerned. Kurt embraces her tenderly.
Jeannie, what is it?
Scott rolls Xavier out of the elevator. They witness the scene. Xavier already understands. He's furious. Scott and the others are still trying to figure out what happened.
Where is he?
She points to her room. Scott pushes open the door. Jason digs himself out from the debris and tries to stand.
He tried.
Jason walks out into the hallway. He looks from face to face and sees their shock and disappointment, especially Wolverine's.
Go to hell.
He charges down the stairs. Wolverine runs after him.
Jason!
Foyer. Jason runs out the front door, exterior front of the X-Men mansion. He runs to the Porsche. Foyer. Wolverine flings open the door. Exterior front of X mansion. Wolverine emerges into a world of fog. He can't see a thing. He hears the Porsche start up and drive off.
Jason!
The X-Men stand in silence and hear the deep throb of the Porsche as it races away.
Good riddance.
Cut to exterior prints, metalworks, compounds, guardhouse night. Start in the word metalworks carved into iron letters over a large gate. Crane down and find a red Porsche convertible pulling up into the guardhouse. Jason, still overwrought, speaks to the armed, uniformed guard, a big, tough, hardworking guy named Phil.
I need to see Mr. Prince.
Cut to interior Prince's library night. Prince sits up in bed watching Johnny Carson. He distractedly plays with a metal paper clip, which he lies on the book he's perusing. He points at a clip and makes it move away from his finger, then towards his finger, then float in midair. The paperclip reshapes itself into a treble clef. The phone rings. He answers it.
What is it?
He listens, then seems pleased.
Bring him here.
Cut to Exterior Prince Metalworks compound denied. Jason is driven in a Jeep through the compound, which is both an industrial facility and a military base for a vigilante army. Citizen in uniform mill about. Meeting and assemblies take place in lighted rooms. Phil now treats Jason differently. Are you a friend of Mr. Prince?
Relative.
The Jeep parks in front of Prince's plantation-style house with a column portico. Jason looks up at the imposing stairway, which leads to the front door. Right this way. Jason follows Phil up the steps. Cut to interior Prince's kitchen. Night. Thump. Gas jets ignite under a tea kettle.
What happened, Jason?
Prince is dressed in a silk robe and slippers. Jason takes a moment to choose his words.
They treat me like I'm not as good as they are, like I'm nobody, you know?
Because they're jealous.
Prince takes out some mugs and tea bags.
Listen to me, Jason. Deep down, they know your gift is more precious than theirs, more powerful. In the world of the mind, you're God. Think how small that makes them feel. Crushes their egos. Their only defense is to deny your power. Because if they can make you think you're weak, then you'll be weak, right?
No, Jason, you're just a narcissistic asshole. Prince pulls out a chair from Jason and sits next to him at a breakfast table.
But I don't want you to be weak. I want you to be strong. I want you to be awesome. I want you to have everything you desire.
Prince leans closer.
They tried to drag you down, Jason. They tried to drag you to their level. I'm going to put you in charge.
Jason is hooked. Cut to exterior Prince compound day. Prince drives Jason around in his Jeep. In the background, we establish the industrial metalworking aspect of the compound, as well as the military operations, in which citizens run an obstacle course, perform weapons drills, and jog in formation.
Tell me about Xavier. What's he think about human beings?
He says we're just another kind of human. He says humans and mutants just evolved together.
Prince snorts with disdain.
And his little fan club. What's that all about?
They call themselves X-Men. We're supposed to protect people from bad mutants like you.
Prince smiles.
Jason, have you ever met a Neanderthal man?
Jason grins, bemused.
Well, have you? Are there bands of Neanderthals here and there minding their own business?
I never saw any.
Where do you suppose they went?
I guess they died out.
Human beings killed them. That's where they went. Well, it's not bad. It's not good. It's evolution.
Prince parks near a large hangar and turns towards Jason.
And we're the next step.
Cut to interior gymnasium at compound day. 12 citizens, all perfect specimens, practice martial arts under the guidance of Atalanta. Prince leads Jason by the group.
This is where we train our citizens.
They pass through the door. Interior anteroom to the swimming pool day. Prince presses in a code. Another door opens. Interior Olympic-sized indoor pool day. As Prince and Jason enter, they hear the thunderous sliding and clanging of a pile driver. They look over the edge of the drained pool. Atalanta works out on a Nautilus machine built for Hercules. It resembles a stationary version of the exoskeleton forklifts from Aliens. This chick is pumping iron by the ton. When you see her muscles, you'll forget its special effects.
Atalanta.
Just a minute.
She squeezes out one more rep and extricates herself from the machine.
You remember Atalanta.
Sure.
Atalanta leaps effortless out of the deep end into the deck. She lands in front of them and shakes Jason's hand.
I'm glad you came. You're the one we wanted.
Thanks.
I was getting ready to explain to Jason about our political goals.
Atalanta drapes a towel around her neck.
Your friends can be a major obstacle to our plans, Jason.
They're not my friends.
We need them out of the way.
Hey, I'm there.
Cut to interior X Mansion indoor swimming pool day. Xavier swims using only his arms. He stops and rests at the steps. Wolverine wades into the pool, chomping on a cigar.
Still no word from Jason?
Xavier turns ruefully to Wolverine.
I was too hard on him.
Nah, it's my fault. I never should have brought him here.
Wolverine lifts Xavier out of the water and sets him in his wheelchair.
When I found you, you were worse.
Wolverine throws him a towel.
Don't try to flatter me.
Cut to interior Catholic Cathedral day. A mass in progress, crowded, Sunday morning. Haunting music, soaring arches, glowing stained glass windows. Jason, Atalanta, and several citizen types stand in the back by the holy water.
Is everything set?
Just do your thing.
Jason concentrates. In the pews, the worshippers sink to their knees and bow their heads. Suddenly, the thunderous voice of God shakes the massive edifice.
Human beings!
The people look up aghast. A column of fire and smoke forms above the altar. Professor Xavier's head, 40 feet high, appears inside the flames, like God or the Wizard of Oz.
Man's dominion over Earth has ended.
Interior synagogue day. Jews at a wedding observe a similar spectacle.
The human race has given birth to its replacement, Homo superior.
Interior Black Baptist Church day. The preacher and the gospel choir in colorful robes gaze in the terror at Xavier's heads.
We are Homo superior. Say that in the street.
All the X-Men stand around the church. They each wear a costume emblazoned with a large X. Interior Episcopal Church day. The prosperous, waspy congregates look around at the individual X-Men who surround them.
We are your masters.
Cyclops slices through the wooden cross with his energy beam. Bzzz! Interior Mosaic day. American Muslim. Mosque. Thanks. Sorry. Interior Muslim. Oh my God, I'm tired. Kneeling on prayer rugs, seeing Kitty emerge from the stone mihrab, the holy niche facing Mecca. Oh God.
Homo sapiens must serve Homo superior.
Interior Buddhist temple day.
Homo sapiens must obey Homo superior.
Wolverine slices off the 6 arms of Shiva. Interior Episcopal Church day. Nightcrawler creeps up a crucifix and sits on Jesus' weary shoulders.
Homo sapiens must worship Homo superior.
Interior Cathedral day. Jean floats a baby Jesus out of Mary's arm and hurls it crashing into the stone wall.
God is dead.
The stained glass windows explode and statues tumble from their niches. Interior synagogue explosions.
God is dead.
Interior mosque explosions.
God is dead.
Interior Buddhist temple explosions.
Long live the X-Men.
I think you get the idea at this point. Interior back at the cathedral. Atalanta shakes Jason, who comes out of his trance. He is alarmed to see that the cathedral actually is in ruins, burning. Worshippers stampede by them to escape. Some people are trapped under heavy rubble.
Let's go.
He doesn't move. She pulls him with her. Cut to exterior street today. Jean, Scott, Kurt, Wolverine, and Kitty move a movie theater. They walk through an area with many restaurants and bars, but the street is almost deserted.
You think Arnold Schwarzenegger's a mutant?
That was.
You think everybody's a mutant?
Speaking of which, where is everybody?
They notice the strangely empty streets. A couple, Jack and Jill, are among the few people outside.
Jack, I think that's them!
Who?
The X-Men!
Other people turn and stare at the X-Men.
They're staring at us.
They're afraid.
Interior bar. Jack runs into the bar where a crowd is glued to the projection TV, which runs news reports about the X-Men. There's a feeling of apocalyptic gloom, like sudden outbreak of war and the landing of aliens.
The X-Men outside! The X-Men!
The bartender takes a gun from under the counter and goes outside. Exterior street. Patrons of all the bars and restaurants rush out and stare. People lean out of their upstairs windows. Bystander 1 points at Kurt.
Look, it's the Monkey Man!
And the babe with the red hair.
Oh God, look how ugly he is.
What do we do?
I don't know.
Somebody call the police.
We gotta stop him.
The X-Men are tense. A bunch of very big guys step in front of them.
Well, that's far enough.
You got a problem?
Yeah. You're the problem.
Wolverine takes a deep breath.
I'm asking you nicely, not to piss me off.
A bottle hits Wolverine in the face. Then more bottles rain on the X-Men.
Get him.
The mob charges at the X-Men. Jean shoves them back telekinetically. Jill grabs at Kitty. Her hands go through. She screams. Wolverine defends himself from brawlers.
Why is this happening?
Kurt is panicked by the mob and its hatred. They chase him across the street, surround him, force him against the building. Terrified, he climbs the outside of the old 12-story skyscraper.
Oh my God, poor Kurt. Why isn't he, transporting himself?
Somebody pulls a gun. Jean forces the shooters to swing wildly and fire in the air. Wolverine continues to kick ass. Others in the mob try to grab Scott. His glasses fall off in the scuffle. Bzzz. His beam cuts a trench in the street. The X-Men back up to their van. Scott sweeps his beam to keep the mob at bay.
Get in.
We've got to help Kurt.
Kurt climbs to the top of the skyscraper. He pulls himself up next to the gargoyle. Some people climb the fire stairs after him. He leaps from the rooftop to rooftop, flips down to a flagpole, drops into the awning, and bounces to the street just as the X-Van pulls up to him with an open door. He jumps in and they speed away from the mob. Interior X-Van day. Kurt huddles next to the door, holding his knees, rocking. Jean tries to comfort him. He shrinks away from her.
The hell was that all about?
Cut to interior Thomas Prince's office day. Jason storms in as Prince watches TV news about the X-Men.
People died, Prince. That wasn't the plan.
Prince turns around calmly.
The plan is working, Jason. Doesn't matter if a few people die.
How can you say that?
Prince turns solemnly to Jason.
My whole life, I respected human life. I used my power to make money, but I didn't compete unfairly. I had a wife, one of our kind, and 2 beautiful daughters. Then 4 years ago, I sent them on a trip. I wanted them to see the glories of mankind since they'd heard so much from me about its atrocities. On the way home, their jet was blown out of the sky by a terrorist bomb.
Prince pauses and composes himself.
Right then, I realized the human species had failed its final test. There could be no more doubt. Their time was over and our time had come. And since then, I'm trying to make the necessary changes.
Jason is moved.
You joined me in this work, Jason, and you've performed brilliantly. I hope you'll continue.
Cut to interior X-Mansion den day. Xavier and the X-Men watch the news, which broadcasts home videotapes of the riot outside the movie theater.
Eyewitnesses from this morning's events have viewed these tapes and identified these suspects as the same individuals who appeared in their places of worship.
It's gotta be Jason.
He couldn't do this alone.
Most of them appear normal, although one appears to be severely deformed.
A photo of Kurt fills the screen. He looks down, embarrassed.
I think you're cute.
She hugs him.
Well, it's hard to accept, Hart. Harland, is that these self-proclaimed mutants really have superhuman abilities.
I'm sure we all would like to think this is a hoax by Steven Spielberg or Orson Welles, but this time, Renee, the aliens appear to be real, and they come from right here on Earth.
What are we going to do?
With those tapes, they'll find us in no time.
Maybe we should turn ourselves in. We didn't do anything.
But they've got witnesses.
I'm gonna kill that little bastard.
Find Jason later. For now, we have to hide. Scott, get the van. Everyone else, pack a bag and meet back here in 5 minutes sharp.
As the group splits up, Xavier listens to a distant sound.
Come back.
Wolverine turns to Xavier.
They're coming. 50, maybe 60 people.
Police?
Prince's army.
Wolverine cocks his head and listens. We can't hear anything.
They're in helicopters.
What do we do?
Put your training to use. Wolverine's in charge.
Note, we now have an 8-page action extravaganza that will be shortened and sharpened. The basic pattern is that each X-Men gets to look good before each is finally captured with the help of Jason. Generally, we refer to the X-Men when in combat by their superhero names. For example, Scott is Cyclops, Kurt is the Nightcrawler. Sometimes we call him Scott Cyclops and Kurt Nightcrawler, but that's just so you won't forget that these are two names for the same character. Outside, helicopters approach the land. Inside, helicopters rumble, shakes the mansion.
Scott, stash the professor in the basement and stick with him. Kitty, you go too.
Suddenly, a wall explodes and windows shatter. The X-Men take cover. The front door is blown open. Citizens in uniform charge in. Scott sweeps his beam across the room, blasting the first row of citizens, but more storm in. Outside, Atalanta deploys her troops in different directions. In the back, Jason's standing in a helicopter waiting. Inside, heavy gunfire forces the X-Men to scatter. Scott, Cyclops, wheels Xavier down hallway. Wolverine dives into the fray, slice and dice. Jean makes a rug rise up, toppling those who stand on it. Kurt, Nightcrawler, jumps down from a cornice, pulling curtains over some citizens. Kitty hides under a table. It is kicked over. Exposed, she looks up at Atalanta, who laughs at her. Atalanta lifts Kitty with one hand and hurls her at a wall. Kitty flies through the air. Kitty's point of view, zooming towards the wall. Kitty, her face in panic when she phases through the wall. Atalanta, agog. Wolverine tumbles and spins like a dervish, disarming many citizens. Atalanta shoots at him from across the room. He takes a couple of hits in the arm and dives through the window. Jean and Nightcrawler run down the hallway to the danger room. Atalanta and 6 citizens pursue. Scott, Cyclops, and Xavier head down into a corridor. Citizens turn a corner and rush at them. Cyclops zaps the floor, which collapses. The citizens fall through. Cyclops opens the door to the study. Inside the study, Cyclops and Xavier catch their breath. Nightcrawler rushes into the danger room. Atalanta and her squad follow them inside. Slam! The door shuts behind them. The bad guys are trapped inside. Jean stands in the hallway, relieved. She slides the bolt closed telekinetically. Clunk. Danger room. Nightcrawler swing up into the control booth from a rope. He seals the booth just as Atalanta is about to leap into after him. He activates the controls. The danger room attacks with all its weapons. Nightcrawler blows Atalanta a kiss. He leaves the control booth through the back door. Jean runs into the dining room where 4 citizens are searching for X-Men. They take aim at her. She forces their muzzles aside, causing them to miss. They run after her. She looks back and their feet slip out from under them. Exterior Wolverine sniffs and listens to citizens. He sneaks up on a squad of 4 and then about to shoot at Xavier. He is shish kebabs a pair of them with each set of claws. Exterior Kitty. She's pursued by a citizen. He shoots her, but the bullets pass through. She stumbles and falls. He fires point blank. The bullets just pass through. Exasperated, he lowers his rifle. Kitty kicks him in the balls. Oof. She gets up and starts to run, and then she runs right into the arms of another citizen who grabs her. To her surprise, he struggles, but she can't phase. He drags her away towards a helicopter. Atalanta and a squad in danger room. The last citizen is knocked out by a sliding pole. Only Atalanta is still standing. chased by the automaton. She picks up an iron cage and heaves it at the juggernaut. The automaton falls on its side but keeps spinning. She picks up the cage and uses it to smash the robot like a bug. Then she takes the cage and throws it against the wall, opening a gaping hole. This bitch is strong. Jean dashes into the kitchen, chased by 3 citizens. Carving knives fly at them. Thwack, 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 thwack. Ah! 3 embed themselves in the wall. One knife flies into his shoulder. Kurt, Nightcrawler, fences with a citizen, using an umbrella against the muzzle of an automatic rifle, which is firing away. Bullets carve dotted arcs into the wall behind Nightcrawler. Another citizen joins the fray. Nightcrawler pulls a cane from the umbrella stand with his left hand and fights both citizens simultaneously. They duel their way up the staircase. He sends the rifle flipping out of the opponent's hand. He whacks him with the umbrella across the face, parries a punch with his tail, then kicks him tumbling down the stairs. Nightcrawler flips into the banister and knocks out the other citizen with a kick to the head. Just then, Atalanta arrives from the foot of the stairs and she lifts a broadsword from a suit of armor. Nightcrawler runs to the top of the stairs. Atalanta crouches, leaps, flies into the second-story landing, blocking Nightcrawler's path. Nightcrawler gulps. Atalanta smiles. Cyclops and Xavier. They hear the fight raging outside. Kitty is locked inside of the helicopter. She flattens herself against the metal shell as hard as she can, but she just cannot feel, she's not feeling very porous. Wolverine slits a throat, cuts off a hand, and punctures an eyebrow. Okay, I got it out of my system. Jean, 2 citizens grab Jean. She pushes them away with her force field and then reaches up. A rolling pin flies off the wall behind her and into her hand, and without a breaking rhythm, she clubs one citizen, then another.
Wouldn't you rather bash me?
She certainly would. She stands and hurls the rolling pin at Jason. It tumbles through the air, corrects its course, and hits him square in the face. Down he goes. Jean runs over to him, kneels beside him, and picks up the rolling pin in case he needs another love tap. A shadow covers her. She looks up. The real Jason is standing above her, holding a heavy pot.
Nothing personal.
He hits her on the head with the pot. She keels over. Cyclops and Xavier look out the window as Jean, who is carried off by the citizens.
Go. I'll be all right.
Cyclops lifts the sash window and runs after her. Outside, Cyclops sees Jean and citizens turn a corner. He runs around the corner and he's surprised to find only Jason.
Where is she?
Somewhere else.
Cyclops, enraged, blasts Jason, but the beam bounces off Jason and ricochets back at Cyclops, sending him flying 20 feet. He lands on his back, unconscious. Another angle, Jason stands behind a ruby quartz mirror, which reflected Scott's beam back at him.
I still know what she sees in you.
Nightcrawler backs away from Atalanta and her broadsword. He jumps into the pool table. She swings at his legs. He jumps, swings, jumps, swings, jumps. He grabs a cue stick, pokes her in the face between swings. She takes a big windup. He pole vaults over her on the cue stick. He backs up into the balcony rail. She rolls a grand piano towards him. He climbs onto the rail. She shoves the piano full speed at him. He looks at his shoulder and sees a chandelier. He leaps just as the piano crashes through the rails and falls. Nightcrawler reaches for the chandelier and his hand passes through it. Slow motion, Nightcrawler grabs frantically for anything. Below, Jason looks up smiling. Nightcrawler falls and twists helplessly. He's going to splatter. Ta-da! He makes a perfect landing on 2 feet facing Jason.
People attempt.
A net falls on top of Nightcrawler. 4 citizens perfectly positioned gather up the corners and carry him off.
When will you people stop understanding me?
Or underestimating you. Jason smiles at Atalanta. Xavier scowls, concerned about Cyclops. He wheels himself towards the door, which swings open before he can get there. Citizens rush in. Xavier tries to wheel away. He overturns the chair. Xavier lies helplessly on the floor. 3 citizens grab him. The leader pulls out a syringe gun.
Hold them down.
Xavier stands at him intensely. The leader hesitates. He can't seem to act. The other 3 of them seem confused. 4 more citizens rush in and see the others doing nothing.
Inject them.
The 4 citizens near Xavier turn and shoot the newcomers. Interior helicopter night. Kitty gets a running start, barrels for the wall of the helicopter, and runs through. Xavier is rolled through the house, escorted by his 4 new allies. The leader holds the syringe gun.
When you see Jason, inject him immediately. Don't let him pull any tricks.
Jason sees them and backs out of sight. From another angle, and another Xavier rolls in front of this syringe group. This Xavier points at them and shouts,
There he is. Behind you, Jason.
The confused citizens look behind them. Jason is now sitting in Xavier's wheelchair. This Jason points at the other Xavier.
No. That's Jason there.
The citizens look from Xavier Jason to Jason Xavier, confused. The leader injects the guy who looks like Jason. Jason dissolves into Xavier and slumps unconscious in his wheelchair. The citizen seems to come out of the dream where the other Xavier sat. Jason now stands.
Get him on the helicopter.
Yes, sir.
Wolverine walks away from the group of defeated citizens on the ground. Atalanta jumps down from a second-story window and lands in front of him.
You've been avoiding me, doll.
You know my type.
She pulls two short swords from hip scabbards. The blades stick out between her middle fingers. Now she's got blades as long as his. They fight on the ground. She leaps into the trees. She jumps down on him. He disarms her. He pins her to the tree with a talon through each of her palms.
Where are they?
Atalanta brings up her knees and shoves him away with her feet.
I'll take you there.
His claws pull out of the tree as he flies backwards. When Wolverine looks back at Atalanta, she whips a long metal chain around his ankle and drags him towards her. She swings another length of chain around his arm. Before he knows it, he's wrapped up in a cocoon of iron chain. Jason runs over and secures his ankles and wrists in a restraining device of thick metal.
These aren't your friends, Jason. You're only fooling yourself.
I fooled you too.
Jason smiles and the chains disappear. The restraining device, however, is real. Wolverine gnashes his teeth in self-reproach. Atalanta walks over and puts a congratulatory hand on Jason's shoulder.
Get him on board.
Kitty runs by in the background, pursued by citizens. She runs into a grove of trees and hides in the trunk of a huge old oak. The citizens can't find her. Atalanta sees the situation.
Forget her. We're taking off.
Helicopters. One helicopter takes off with Jean, Scott, Kurt, and Xavier. Jason, Atalanta, and 4 citizens carry Wolverine onto the other helicopter. Interior helicopter. Wolverine is thrown into the back. The helicopter takes off. Wolverine looks around. He can't break out of the restraining device. He edges to the window. He looks outside. The helicopter raises higher and higher.
Where do you think you're going?
Out for some air.
Wolverine lunges through the window of the helicopter. Exterior helicopter. Wolverine falls 300 feet, bound hand and foot. Tree. Wolverine lands in a tall tree, tumbles from branch to branch, and lands on the ground with a thud. No human being could survive this fall. The iron restraining device is broken. Wolverine's body is perfectly still.
Wolverine?
He opens an eye.
Help?
Oh, you gotta be kidding.
I'm stuck.
With a terrible effort, he turns his head. He sees Kitty. She's frozen inside a tree, half in, half out.
How'd you do that?
How'd you fall out of a helicopter?
Intentionally.
Wolverine sits up, wincing. His face is all cut up. One eye is closed. One sleeve is bloody.
Oh my God, your arm.
He peels back his sleeve and reveals a huge gash in his upper arm. His shiny adamantium sheath bone glints in the moonlight.
Disgusting. You gotta get to a hospital.
I'll be okay.
He steps towards the tree and extends his claws. Shink! He slices off a thick hunk of the wood near her face.
Hey, watch it.
He whacks away at the tree. Dissolved 2 later, a tree stump and a pile of sawdust. Kitty ties a bandage around Wolverine's arm.
Wolverine, I don't want to bail on you or anything, but I really ought to go home.
You're staying with me.
No, I'm not.
You're wanted, like the rest of us. And the first place they'll look is your parents.
He stands and walks towards the garage. She hasn't got a good answer, so she follows.
Now, all healed up. Now, we're gonna go get your friends, and we're gonna need help.
He swings the garage door up, revealing a classic Rolls Royce. Interior garage day, he throws Kitty the keys.
Drive.
I've only got my learner's permit.
Well, then learn.
He opens the back door and lies down in the back seat. Interior why can I not say that right now? Rolls Royce. He gets into the cushy driver's seat and inserts the key into the ignition.
So where are we going?
To get the angel.
Kitty backs up, scraping the side of the rolls against a post. Cut to interior Prince Metalworks hangar night, a media circus. Politicians, scientists, industrialists, and journalists anxiously wait in chairs set up inside a giant hangar. TV cameras are ready to escort the proceedings. Jason and Atalanta are seated in the front row. Thomas Prince walks to the podium.
Ladies and gentlemen, while the authorities talked, the men and women of the Citizens Brigade apprehended the X-Men. We tracked them to a mansion in Westchester County and attempted to make a citizen's arrest. Although 2 of the mutants are still at large, I am pleased to announce that the other 4, including their leader, are now in custody.
The crowd murmurs excitedly. Prince nods to Atalanta. She pulls a switch. Bright lights illuminate a raised platform. 4 X-shaped crucifixes pivot from a horizontal to an upright position. On each cross, 1 X-Men is shackled. Jean has a high-tech electronic cage around her head. Scott has an iron mask over his face. Xavier has an IV tube in his arm. The crowd gasps, fascinated and frightened. 2 journalists, one whispers to the other.
This will put him in the White House.
On stage.
Allow me to introduce the X-Men. At their head is Charles Xavier, telepath. His parents worked on the Manhattan Project to develop the atomic bomb. Their exposure to radiation accounts for his mutation.
Prince's speech can be intercut with a multimedia presentation and close-up of the X-Men's reactions.
Xavier became obsessed with tracking down other mutants and luring them to his unaccredited school.
Exterior Rolls Royce on the road night. The car passes through the countryside.
There he preyed on their sense of alienation and trained them in the use of their unusual abilities.
Interior Rolls Royce night. Wolverine and Kitty listen to the radio.
He makes it sound so sinister.
On the stage, multimedia presentation. Kurt cringes, humiliated.
This pathetic creature was literally bought by Xavier from his parents. Formerly timid, Kurt Wagner is now a trained martial artist with a deeply unstable personality.
Wolverine and Kitty.
Forgot that he teleports. Those parents kept him locked in the attic. We only found out about him because his house caught on fire.
Interior hangar night. The presentation is over. Most of the crowd has filed out. Prince speaks with reporters. The governor pushes through the crowd.
If you'll excuse us, I need to talk to Mr. Prince.
As the reporters shoot questions at him, Mr. Governor, Mr. Governor, he pulls Prince aside.
We'll be taking custody of the suspects, Prince. The sheriff's office is sending over some trucks.
Excuse me, Governor, I don't mean to be disrespectful, but do you have a facility that can hold these prisoners?
The governor looks to his aides for an answer. They don't seem to know.
If they escaped after you took custody, it could be very embarrassing.
I'm afraid we don't have a choice.
That's not entirely true. This state does business with a number of private prisons, and I don't see why we couldn't work out a similar arrangement.
The governor seems to like this idea. Cut to exterior country highways night. The Rolls guides along a scenic highway through the countryside. We hear the radio news.
In order to assure the highest level of security, state authorities have contracted with Thomas Prince.
Interior Rolls Royce night. Kitty drives. Wolverine tries to extract bullets from his arms with his claws. The radio plays in the darkness.
To retain custody of the X-Men until a public facility for their detention can be constructed, State District Attorney David MacNeil announced his intention to file first-degree murder charges against his suspects tomorrow morning in court. Meanwhile, the hunt goes on for
Kitty shuts off the radio.
Great. My life is ruined. I never asked to be part of this stupid group. I never even decided to join.
He grimaces, pulls out the bullet, then feels
Ugh.
relieved.
You know what your problem is? You still think you're normal.
I am normal.
Is that so?
Nobody would know.
Kitty turns away from him. Wolverine regrets being so harsh.
Okay, it's not your fight. When we get to the Angels, I'll find you a place to stay.
She looks at him, grateful and guilty.
Who's the angel anyway?
Exterior country road night. The Rolls drives by.
He used to be part of the group.
Dissolve to interior Prince's parlor night. Prince and Atalanta raises glasses of champagne to Jason.
To our new partner, who makes dreams come true.
To my new friends.
All three clink glasses and drink.
Jason, you've performed valiantly, my boy, and you deserve a reward. As a sign of my appreciation and respect, I'm putting you in charge of our youth recruitment program. I think you should find this a job that suits your tastes.
Prince shakes Jason's hand.
And for tonight?
Prince puts his arm around Jason's shoulder and leads him to a door.
Some of the female members of our organization want to show you their appreciation.
Prince opens a door to a festively decorated rumpus room where three beautiful babes await, grinning for their new hero.
Get out of here.
Well, this is just the beginning, Jason.
I don't know what to say except finally, thank you.
Don't say anything. Just wear a party hat.
He hands him a box of Trojans. Jason smiles and disappears inside. Prince closes the door and grins at Atalanta. Cut to exterior truck stop night, an old-fashioned diner gas station. A few cars and trucks are parked in front. Wolverine is pumping gas into the rolls. He yawns. Interior diner night, a waitress refills Kitty's mug as she sits at the counter next to the cash register.
Your order will be ready in a minute, hun.
Kitty eavesdrops as two large rednecks wait to pay their bill.
I think they ought to kill them all.
Who, the government? The only one that's on golly balls of that guy, Prince.
The coffee mug slips through Kitty's fingers and drops noisily onto the counter.
Oh, that's all right, honey. I'll clean it up.
Kitty reaches for the mug, but she shifts right through it. She grabs for the cup twice more. This time, the waitress sees Kitty's hand phase through the mug. She looks at Kitty, doubting her own eyes. Kitty stands up and pivots to leave. She phases through the two rednecks standing behind her.
Excuse me.
A woman at a booth sees this and screams. Kitty, alarmed, stumbles through the family looking at postcards on a rack. She reaches for the doorknob but ends up just phasing through the door.
You know who that is?
Exterior truck stop night. Kitty runs towards Wolverine, who replaces the nozzle in the pump. A car pulling up into the pump drives right through her, then slams on the brakes.
They saw me. Let's go.
Wolverine turns and sees a small crowd rush towards them from the diner, headed by the Rednecks. He runs to his side of the car, hops in, starts the engine. He looks over. Kitty's still standing outside. She can't open the door. Her hand phases through the handle. Exasperated, Wolverine reaches over and opens the door. Kitty climbs into the truck. Wolverine takes off. The truck zooms forward, but Kitty does not. She is left sitting in the concrete next to the gasoline nozzle, which still flows. Exasperated, Wolverine slams on the brakes, runs back to Kitty.
Look at how short he is. I thought it'd be a lot bigger than that.
You think you look so
It's
tough?
even third
You think
reward.
Emboldened, the rednecks step towards Wolverine. They are joined by about 8 more men who all look like good fighters.
Stay away.
Redneck 1 throws the first punch, and Wolverine proceeds to demolish the first group of attackers without using his claws. He turns to the others.
Now, don't make me get violent.
Edging around the parking area, Wolverine punctures one tire in every vehicle. You're gonna die, mutant.
One of these days.
A shot rings out, a bullet blows out a tire on the rolls. Another bullet barely misses him. Wolverine tumbles. He springs to his feet and grabs the shooter's hand, which holds the gun.
You know how much those tires cost?
Wolverine makes the shooter smash himself in the face with his own gun. He melts to the ground. Wolverine keeps the gun.
Kitty!
He goes to the shooter's car, a 65 Chevy Nova. Thank you, a car that's not difficult for me to say right now. With flames painted on the side, the motor's running. Kitty's now fully solid, gets in. Wolverine turns to the crowd.
Because we're the good guys. Remember that.
The Nova rolls away in a cloud of dust. I don't think you punching them in the face convinces them that you're the good guy. Interior, stolen car night. Wolverine looks over at Kitty.
Well, so much for passing as normal.
Kitty is not amused. Dissolve to exterior small town night. The Nova rolls across a small town past a building that's on fire. Crosses burn on the lawn. Firemen try to put out the blaze. Children in nightshirts stand on the lawn. A sign reads, Meadville Home for the Mentally Retarded. Graffiti now sprayed over it. Death to mutants. Interior Nova night. As they pull closer, they see that the children on the lawn are Mongolids afflicted with Down syndrome. I don't even know.
Human beings suck.
They certainly do. Why do you want to help them?
For a second, he has to think about it.
They don't always suck.
He drives on. Dissolve to exterior country road morning. A different landscape, farms and fields. The Nova cruises down a dirt road. Interior borrowed car day. Wolverine drives. Kitty sleeps. He nudges her.
Kitty. Kitty, wake up. We're almost there.
Kitty wakes, yawns, sits up, looks out the window, and looks at Wolverine.
How's your arm?
It healed like 30 seconds after it happened, so we're better.
He shows her the wound. It's almost healed. She looks at him, amazed.
The healing factor this writer knows nothing about.
They turn at a mailbox and continue onto a long dirt driveway. Exterior farmhouse day. As they approach the farmhouse, several large Rottweilers surround the car and bark ferociously. Warren Worthington III, formerly known as Angel, comes out of the barn. He carries a shotgun pointed at the ground. He is tall, blonde, handsome, and wears blue jeans. His pretty young wife, Amy, runs out of the kitchen holding their baby, Gabriel. He signals her back inside. Wolverine pokes his head out of the car window with a big smile.
Howdy, partner.
I knew you'd show up.
Angel, amigo, we're in serious world of trouble right now.
I'm not Angel anymore.
Wolverine adapts to the cold reception.
If you don't talk to me, Warren, oh God, no, I'll kill your dogs.
Ooh, cool it.
The dogs stop barking and trot away. Wolverine and Kitty step out of the car. She is puzzled by Angel's attitude.
Now let me guess. You want me to help you spring Xavier?
Bingo.
Well, forget it. I've got a wife and a kid now.
So you're gonna let your buddies rot in jail?
I've got no choice. My mutant days are over.
Wolverine grabs Angel's shirt and pulls him close with both hands.
You got wings. You're a mutant.
He rips the shirt off Angel's back. Bare-chested Angel seems perfectly normal. Wolverine stares at him agape. He turns Angel around. He and Kitty see long masses of scar tissue on both sides of his back.
I had him removed.
The fuck? You're sick.
I was a freak. Now I'm normal with anchor arms.
What's so damn great about being normal?
I'm not being hunted down.
Angel faces Wolverine, unapologetic, but his bravado covers an unspeakable sense of loss. Kitty stares at Angel, sensing the magnitude and consequences of his sacrifices. Wolverine wants to stay angry. He's at a loss for words.
Does Xavier know?
He took me out of the files.
That settles it.
All right. We're leaving. You're still
Wolverine.
sick.
Wolverine nods to Kitty, and they walk towards the Nova with the conspicuous flames on the side. Wolverine watches them go.
Wait a second.
They turn.
You won't get far in that.
Cut to interior hangar, Prince Compound Day. A sturdy little bunker has been constructed inside the cavernous hangar where the X-Men were displayed. This is the no-frills state-of-the-art mutant detention center where the X-Men are confined. The surveillance station is positioned outside the bunker. Through the wall-sized two-way mirror, the guards can see the prisoners. The console is manned by 6 citizens, led by Phil. We track close and look through the window. Scott struggles against his bonds. We hear his grunts and groans through the speakers on the surveillance console. The others slump listlessly on their crucifix or cages, facing their reflections in the wall-sized mirror. Cut to exterior Angel's house day. Warren's wife, Amy, lets Kitty hold her baby boy. Wolverine tickles Gabriel with his stubby fingers, and then the baby smiles toothlessly. Angel drives up in his pickup. Angel takes Wolverine aside and hands him the keys to the truck. Kitty eavesdrops as she holds the baby.
You can't say I'm wrong, not with what's going on.
Just do me one favor. Let the girl stay.
I can't.
We only found her a week ago.
Everybody's seen her picture.
Warren, she's 16 years old, for Christ's sake.
Of course she can stay.
Of course she can stay.
Angel looks at her angrily. She faces him down, deeply disappointed in him. Angel is ashamed, and Kitty sees it. Wolverine moves towards the truck.
Thanks. Stay around.
I'm going with you.
You want it out? You're out.
Wolverine gets in the truck.
Wolverine!
He ignores her and starts up the motor. Kitty, Angel, and Amy watch as Wolverine goes off to fight their battle. The truck pulls away and heads around the circular drive. Kitty watches him. Suddenly, she shoves Gabriel and Amy's arm and takes off across the grass. She chases after the pickup, catches it at the cutoff, and pulls herself into the cargo bed. Interior pickup day. Wolverine looks at the rearview mirror and sees Kitty phase through the back of the cab and sit down in the passenger seat. He glances at her but acts like nothing special has happened. Kitty catches her breath and suppresses a grin.
How come you can't do that when it matters?
It mattered.
Wolverine tries not to smile. He fails. They grin at each other. At last, dissolved to interior small room day. Xavier is wheeled horizontally in the small room and pivoted upright. On the other side of the thick glass window sits his attorney, Arthur Hollingsworth, an old-fashioned New England barrister.
Charles, this can't be true.
It is, and it isn't, Arthur. The mutant part, that's true.
Well, that explains all the money you wanted on that school.
I'm not but I'm not guilty of any crimes, and neither are my students.
How do you account for the witnesses?
Arthur, we're not the only ones. I had a student who could project delusions into the minds of other people. He's now working for Thomas Prince, who's also a mutant.
And what about the president, Charles? Is he a mutant?
No, but if Thomas Prince gets elected, he will be.
Arthur sighs.
Charles, if your defense were accepted, the legal system would fall apart. Every time a case depended on eyewitness testimony, you could invoke the mutant defense. I didn't do it, Your Honor. There was an evil mutant who had the witness think it was me.
So what do you suggest?
Arthur hesitates.
If you plead guilty and submit to medical experiments, I'm fairly sure I can get you off with life imprisonment.
Xavier is angry and discouraged.
Arthur, you know me better than that.
I thought I knew you, Charles. Now I don't know what to think.
Cut to interior X-Jail day. The door opens. Xavier is wheeled in. The X-Men look at him expectantly. They see his somber expression.
There's still Wolverine.
Cut to interior Angels pickup day. Wolverine passes a tanker. Kitty tries to open the pop top on a can of soda. She breaks the tab.
Damn, that's my last one.
Wolverine looks over, extrudes 2 outside claws, and punctures 2 holes in the top of the can. Kitty watches the blades retract into the back of his hand.
Were you born with those?
They're a gift from the government.
Can I see?
He holds out his forearm for her to inspect. We get to see it in close up.
Careful now.
He extends his claws. She marvels at them.
What are they made of?
Adamantium, like the rest of my bones.
You've got metal bones?
Metal plated. When they found out I was a fast healer, they came up with the bright idea of cutting me open and encasing all my bones with metal. Claws were just a bonus.
Ugh. Why'd you let them do it?
They didn't ask.
Kitty looks at Wolverine with sympathy. Exterior countryside day. Vroom. The pickup speeds down the highway. Cut to exterior Prince Metalworks compound gatehouse night. A flatbed truck with a load under a tarp is waved through security. Exterior compound mess hall night. Close up on tarp over lumber. The shiny pointed blade pokes through the canvas and slides open a long rip. Wolverine looks through the hole. He climbs out, then extracts Kitty. He hears something. He pulls her into the stand of trees. Guards pass.
Keep an eye out for Jason. When I finish with Prince, I'll meet you back here.
He turns to go.
Wolverine,
What?
I'm scared.
Good. That means you're not stupid.
He creeps away. Wolverine sniffs, waits as 2 soldiers pass, then continue between 2 barracks. Kitty watches from the shadow. She sees Jason come out of a building. She tries to get Wolverine's attention. He's already out of sight. Unable to resist, she follows Jason. Exterior jail hangar night. Jason goes into the building where the X-Men are kept. He passes through security. Heavy doors are opened, and he's loud inside. Kitty takes a breath and phases through a side wall. Interior jail hangar night. Kitty is pleased with herself for phasing. She edges along the wall and sees Jason speaking with the guards. She tries to phase into the bunker. She bounces off, rubs her head, tries again, makes it through. Interior X-Jail night. Kitty emerges in the room with her captive teammates. She gets their attention. They hide their joy. She signals, "What do I do?" Kurt points to a control panel on the wall. She walks over to it. A large red switch is marked alarm. She flips it from on to off. Instantly, trapdoors open underneath her. Kitty falls into a pit 12 feet deep. Jason walks to the edge.
Phase all you want, Kitty. There's no place to go but China.
She looks up and sees Jason looking down at her, laughing. Cut to exterior Prince's house night. Wolverine cuts a circle into the window with his claw. Cut to interior Prince's house night. Wolverine sneaks through the house and sniffs his way to the library. He listens at the door, then smiles. Interior library night. Prince sits at his desk and reviews a contract. Wolverine enters in front of him.
Hey, bub. It's payback time.
Wolverine advances confidently towards Prince, ready to vivisect him.
That's right. You owe me 1 dead body.
But as Wolverine extends his arm to grab Prince's throat, something blocks his way. He's repelled by an invisible force. Wolverine, puzzled, struggles to get to the Prince, but he is pushed further away. Prince smiles. Wolverine grimaces.
I've got power too, little man.
Wham! Wolverine flies across the room as he's propelled by the silent explosion. He crashes into the wall.
I play with magnetism, and your metal skeleton is made to order.
Wolverine gets to his feet and charges at Prince. He's sent flying into the ceiling. Wham! Then he falls to the floor. Thud!
I'd say your arrogance is way out of line with your abilities.
As Wolverine starts to get up, Prince slams him sideways into the wall, then into another wall. Wolverine bounces around the room like a handball, leaving smudges of blood. His bones show through in several places. Jason arrives with news of Kitty. He is astonished to see that Prince easily toys with his former hero.
Jason, this is the invincible Wolverine? I think you're in better company now.
Wolverine's got more heart than Rocky. He picks himself up and skint. Now the fur's gonna fly. Prince just laughs. Wolverine's arms don't obey him. His claws turn against him. He stabs himself in the throat with his left hand. He stabs himself in the belly with his right hand. He rakes his claws up through his abdomen.
You got guts, Wolverine. Gotta hand it to you.
Jason is in anguish, seeing his old friend eviscerated in front of his eyes. Wolverine looks to Jason for help. Jason, frozen in terror, answers only with a look of pity. Prince hyper extends Wolverine's elbows and knees past the breaking point. They snap with a loud, nauseating cracks. Prince knots Wolverine's flaccid limbs behind his back. As he tightens the knots, Wolverine's spine folds back on itself. The vertebrae snaps with a series of grisly crunches. With the last few crunches, Wolverine's agony dissolves into peaceful escape of death. Prince slumps into the chair, exhausted. Jason, shaken, checks the body.
He's dead.
Atalanta walks in and sees the freakish lump of flesh and metal on the floor.
Bury this piece of junk. Jason, help her.
Jason stares at the body. Cut to exterior scrap metal yard day. Jason and Atalanta get out of the car. Wolverine's remains are in the back seat. Atalanta stands behind the car and pushes it over the edge with a deep pit, partially filled with scrap metal. The car crashes to the bottom of the hole. A bulldozer shoves piles of scrap metal on top of the car. Atalanta cheerfully plants a rusty TV antenna on top of the mound as a kind of mocking cross.
Don't feel sad, honey. You've got us.
She walks off. Jason stays for a moment at Wolverine's grave. Cut to exterior jail hangar at compound night. Mobs with torches shout choruses of "Death to the X-Men! Death to the X-Men!" Some carry signs of anti-mutant slogans with terrifying sight. Prince, Jason, and Atalanta are escorted through the crowd by citizens. They go inside. Interior jail hangar night. Prince and Jason step up to the surveillance counter and address Phil. Evening, Mr. Prince.
We're here to see the prisoners, Phil.
I'll open it. Phil punches in a series of commands and a huge security door unlocks. Phil gets up and swings it open. The visitors enter. Interior X-Jail night. The X-Men are despondent as they watch their enemies enter.
I'm going to turn off the surveillance, Phil. I want to talk in private.
Prince presses some controls. The two-way mirror goes from reflective to dark. Are you going to be all right in there?
Well, they're secured, aren't they?
Yes, sir.
Then we'll be fine.
Phil exits, pulling the door closed behind him. Surveillance console. The video screens are blank and silent. Interior X-Jail. Prince addresses the X-Men.
Thought you should know. Wolverine is dead.
The X-Men look at each other, skeptical. Jason nods in confirmation.
I'd announce it publicly, but gotta keep the hate thing going.
So you'll get elected.
So mutants can be in charge. The human race is finally going to strangle on its own hatred.
Would you expect when mutants like you go around killing people?
They'd have hated us anyway.
You never gave them a chance.
Stop defending them!
He points to the mob outside.
Can't you hear? They want you dead.
He calms himself.
You're so pathetic you don't deserve to survive. Let's go.
Prince leaves. Jason follows with mixed feelings. Cut to close up on gravel. Bam, bam, bam. Interior courtroom. 6 weeks later day. The judge addresses the jury. Foreman. Has the jury reached a verdict?
We have, Your Honor.
Cut to interior Jason's bedroom. Prince's house night. Start on TV screen.
A verdict was handed down today in the trial of the X-Men.
Slowly zoom out and find ourselves in Jason's bedroom. Jason and Gretchen, one of the three admirers, watch the news while lounging semi-clad in his bed. She wants to play. He is sullen and testy.
After only 20 minutes of deliberation, the jury came to a unanimous decision. Guilty in all counts. Judge Harold Garwood has sentenced at once, condemning the mutants to death by electrocution. Catherine Pride, a minor, will be held until the age of 18, and then her sentence will be carried out.
Jason, can you please get me into the execution? Please?
Shut up.
He changes the channel to the MacNeil Lair News Hour.
And in tonight's feature, we focus on the remarkable rise of Thomas Prince. Only a few months ago, an extremist on the fringe of American politics, the former industrialist is now riding a huge lead into the final weeks of the presidential campaign.
Jason changes the channel. Prince is being interviewed.
The mutant menace isn't over. Thousands of mutants are living among us right now.
Changes channel.
We need to find them and root them out.
Changes channel.
A fight to the death between competing species.
Jason disgustedly turns off the TV and leaves the room.
Jason, are you mad at me?
Cut to exterior junkyard night. Jason sits on the hill of scrap metal next to the TV antenna, which marks Wolverine grave. Face in his hand, he cries. Cut to exterior X-Mansion night. Point of view approaching the portico. Reverse angle finds Jean walking through the grounds to the front door. The whole feeling is like a horror movie. She enters the damaged building. The door creaks as it opens. Interior X-Managed night. She walks into the foyer and looks around. The place is deserted. Point of view approaches her from behind. She turns around with a start. It's Kurt.
How'd you get here?
I don't know. I think this is a dream.
Then Scott and Kitty enter from different doors. Everyone is confused.
We had to talk in private.
They turn and see an Xavier in his wheelchair.
When you're asleep, the threshold is low enough for me to squeeze through.
They all start to fade away, then they all reform.
I have a way for us to escape.
Cut to interior X jail night. Jean wakes up. She looks around. The other X-Men are also just waking. They all have the same quizzical expression. They check each other out and nod in vague confirmation. Jean looks at Xavier. He nods supportedly. She glances at the video cameras. They take a deep breath and concentrate like hell on Scott. Jean, the psychic neutralizer overhead, crackles with static electricity. On Cyclops, close on a tiny screw in his helmet. Nothing happens. Jean stops and takes a breath, then concentrates like never before. Her psychic neutralizer sparks a little more. On Cyclops, the screws rotate 2 degrees. The irises over Cyclops' eyes open up a tiny pinhole. Bzzz. A fine thread of light sweeps across the room. Cyclops sees a metal hook hanging from a pulley near the ceiling over Kitty's pit. Cyclops follows a rope from the pulley to a clasp on the walls. His beam burns slowly through the rope. Cut to interior Princess House night. Jason quietly enters through the front door and sneaks past the library towards the stairs. Just as he thinks he's made a clean getaway, Prince calls out to him.
Jason, could you come in here?
Reluctantly, Jason enters the library where Prince and Atalanta play chess.
Where were you?
Prince looks at him suspiciously. Oh, sorry.
Very good. I went for a walk.
Prince looks at him suspiciously.
I've been wanting to talk to you. Sit down.
Jason nervously takes a seat.
Step 1 has worked like a charm. And with the X-Men gone, the rest should be easy.
They weren't supposed to die. You said out of the way. You didn't say dead.
Dead is out of the way.
I can't trust you.
Jason, do you want power? Because if you want power, the first thing you do is get rid of your enemies.
I never wanted power. I wanted some money. I wanted respect.
You'll get your goddamn respect after the election. Right now, I need you to finish what you started.
I've done enough.
Prince clenches his jaw in anger. Jason has a crazed look in his eyes. He's not ready to back down. Atalanta tenses up. They face each other for a long, tense beat.
What if I gave your friends a way out? Would that make you feel more cooperative?
Jason cautiously lightens up.
It might help.
Cut to interior X-Jail night. Scott's beam burns through the rope, which runs through the pulley. The hook at the end of the rope drops noisily onto the iron grate over the dungeon. It doesn't fall through. X-Men look around to see if they've alerted the guards. The door doesn't open. Jean stares at the hook. It slides an inch and falls through the grate. The rest of the rope runs through the pulley and lies on the floor. Jean stares at the end of the rope. It snakes through the air over towards Kurt's cage. Kurt stretches his arm for it. Can't reach. He turns around and stretches the tail through the bars. His tail wraps around the rope like 2 snakes. The rope is taut. Kitty starts climbing the rope. Cut to exterior Prince compound night. Prince, Jason, and Atalanta walk towards the hangar. Cut to interior X-Jail night. Kitty, having climbed the rope, phases through the grate and clambers onto the floor.
Now what?
It's the keys.
Kitty takes a breath and sticks her arms through the wall. Surveillance console. While the guards play cards, a hand picks the keys from the hook on the wall. X jail. Kitty pulls out her arm and she's holding the keys. She opens Jean's handcuffs. Then Scott's eyes band. She throws the keys up to Kurt and he snatches them. And just then, the metal doors slam open. Prince stands there furious. And in an instant, Scott's eye band flies over his head and seals itself. Water pipes burst through the walls and bind Jean into her seat. Then neutralizer settles itself over her head. The bars of Kurt's cage bend in, making it impossible for him to get out.
You all know Phil? He hasn't mistreated you, has he?
The X-Men grudgingly shake their head.
Phil, hand your gun to Atalanta.
I'm not supposed to relinquish my firearm, sir.
It's okay, sir. That's okay. I have the authority.
Phil reluctantly hands his gun to Atalanta. She takes it.
Atalanta, aim the gun at Phil.
As Phil gets ready to resist, Atalanta aims the gun at his head. What is this?
Phil will stand for all the so-called innocent people in the world. Now, if you agree to my terms, just nod, and Atalanta will pull the trigger. We'll start with you, Xavier.
You know my answer.
Don't be naive. You've got the most extraordinary brain the world has ever known. Phil's completely common. You're worth 5 billion Phils. Give up Phil and you can save 1 million other lives. Do it, Xavier. For your kids. Or they'll follow you into the grave.
I can't tell you what to do, but I won't kill Phil.
Xavier, that was truly one of the stupidest decisions in history.
Prince looks around, settles on Kurt.
Kurt, look at this redneck bigot. His kids would tie cans to your tail. His beautiful daughter would never kiss you, not even if you won the Nobel Prize. Just nod, Kurt, and all that changes. You die, who will know about your sacrifice? You won't even be a martyr.
Time's up.
Anybody else? Jean? Scott?
They shake their heads.
Kitty? It's up to you.
He settles on Kitty's monitor.
You haven't been around Xavier that long. Maybe you've still got common sense.
Kitty is torn.
Professor?
I'm here, Kitty.
I don't want to die. I haven't done anything. I mean, I'm still a kid. He's already old.
Does that mean shoot?
A long pause. Kitty agonizes over her decision, then she screams in frustration.
I hate you!
She breaks into tears. Prince turns to Phil, who's almost ready to feel relief.
Well, Phil, what do you think about mutants now?
I guess they're not as bad as I thought. Prince smiles.
Atalanta, give Phil's gun to Jason.
She's wary, but Prince nods and she hands the gun to Jason.
Jason, cover him.
He half-heartedly aims the gun at Phil.
Phil's heard too much.
Atalanta grins.
Go ahead. Prove you're superior.
Jason delays.
Do it!
Jason swings his arm at Prince and squeezes off 7 shots. Prince pulls his arms to a defensive stance, palms out. None of the bullets draw blood. Jason is stupefied.
Your aim is off.
Camera pans to Phil. He's got 7 bullet wounds in the head and chest. He collapses dead. The gun flies out of Jason's hand into Prince's hand. He fires once and hits Jason in the heart. Jason tries to speak. He staggers a couple of steps towards Jean and manages to eke out his last words.
I'm sorry.
Then he dissolves into thin air. Pan down and find Jason's dead body already on the floor.
Personally, I think his apologies are a little late.
The X-Men are moved by Jason's futile sacrifice. Dissolved to exterior newsstand night, a truck drives by and a bundle of newspapers is thrown down in front of the newsstand. The headline screams, Execution Day. Cut to interior hangar night. Workers prepare a hangar for the execution, setting up chairs, a podium, a balcony, and large metal lighting grid. On the background, guards keep watch over the bunker where the X-Men are kept. Interior X jail night, a large clock. The second hand sweeps slowly around the dial. Each X-Men faces death on his or her own way. Jean cries quietly. It breaks Xavier's heart.
Hold on a second. Sorry. Jean, Scott, Kurt, Kitty. I want to ask you to forgive me. I don't know what to say except I'm sorry.
Xavier chokes back tears.
It's not your fault, Professor.
We were stupid to think we could change anything. Who cares about humans? They can all go to hell.
I'm not ready. I never kissed a girl even once.
If we accomplish anything at all, I could handle it. But it was all for nothing. Absolutely nothing.
They stare at themselves in the big mirror. Cut to exterior scrap metal yard night. Start high on the sign of the entrance. Crane down, down, down to the top of the heap to the rusty TV antenna, which marks Wolverine's grave. Then down through the scrap metal, down, down, down to the car where Wolverine's coffin, and inside the car to his body, to his head, to his face. Wolverine's eyes opens one eye. Cut to interior prison dawn. Guards open the door and the executioner, a state policeman, steps inside. The ex-crucifixes are in the horizontal sleeping position.
Rise and shine, little mutants. Everybody get a good night's sleep.
The ex-crucifixes are tilted upright. The X-Men look hollow.
I'm your official state executioner, and I'm here to see you get a proper send-off.
4 forklifts dive in with equipment for the execution.
Say goodbye to Kitty Cat. We can't kill her till she's 18.
Cut to exterior scrap metal yard dawn. Small shards of metal slide down the slope with the scrap heap. The mound undulates, starting an avalanche of trash. 3 adamantium claws appear through the top of the mound and glisten in the moonlight. A moment later, the other set of claws pierces the surface. With painful effort, Wolverine births himself out of the heap. Yuck! Look at him. Gooey, oozing, crusty. Reborn. He collapses. A sheet of newsprint is blown by the wind. It gets stuck on Wolverine's face. A hand reaches over and peels off the tenacious paper. He looks at the headline, Execution Day. Wolverine snaps awake. Look at the date, June 14th. Looks at his watch. It's a Timex, and it keeps on ticking. It reads 6:17 a.m. on June 14th.
No time for a shower.
Cut to interior prison dawn. Teamsters move the X-Men around on their rolling crucifixes so that the mobile execution equipment can be set up.
Put the circuit breaker over there and move her out of the way.
Jean is wheeled in front of Scott. They are finally together, alone, face to face. Scott's feelings pour out in a desperate rush.
Jean, I always loved you. From the first day, from the first second. I was afraid I'd hurt you. I didn't trust myself. I wanted to be with you, bud.
The Teamsters roll them apart.
It's okay, my love. I know. I've always known.
For the first time in the movie, Scott smiles. He calls after her.
I love you.
Their eyes cling to each other until they can't see each other anymore. They are placed side by side, facing the mirror. They look at each other side by side. Jean mouths the words, I love you, I love you, I love you. A tear rolls down from under Scott's visor. Cut to exterior scrap metal yard dawn. Wolverine climbs into a bulldozer. Shink! He extends his index claw and inserts it into the ignition. Sparks fly. Wolverine grits his teeth and turns the key. The bulldozer starts up with a deep roar. Wolverine withdraws his claw from the ignition and shifts into gear. He spits out a spark and the bulldozer tracks forward. Cut to exterior jail hangar dawn. It's another media circus. Prince greets the arriving dignitaries who have come to watch the execution. He shakes hands with the new obsequious governor. I don't know. Yeah. Governor.
Do I get invited to the inauguration, Tom?
First, let's get me elected.
I wouldn't worry too much about that.
Atalanta stands vigilantly next to him, making sure nothing goes wrong. Cut to exterior streets dawn. The bulldozer rambles down the street like a rampaging elephant, honking as it approaches red lights. Those cars that don't dart out of the way are shoved aside. The bulldozer pulls up alongside a bus. Wolverine chomps on a cigar butt, shouting to the driver.
Hey, buddy, which way to the execution?
The bus driver sputters with fear. Cut to interior jail hangar dawn. The interior has been set up like an auditorium with rows of seats facing the jail bunker. A balcony level has been constructed in the rear. The surveillance console has been moved aside to afford a clear view. The picture window is dark, so no one can see inside the bunker, but the bunker itself is brightly illuminated by the large metal lightning grid which hangs from the ceiling. Cut to exterior Thomas Prince Metalworks Gatehouse dawn. A guard sees the bulldozer coming. He presses an alarm. Armed citizens take up positions behind the barricades which block the roads on either side of the guardhouse. As the bulldozer approaches, they open fire. The bulldozer crashes right through the gatehouse, demolishing it. The barrels between the barricades and the trundles towards the jail hangar. The guardhouse officer makes a call on a portable phone. Cut to interior jail hangar dawn. Amid the commotion, Atalanta's phone rings. She listens and whispers to Prince.
Somebody breached security. Relax, I'll take care of it.
She runs out. Cut to exterior metalworks compound day. Wolverine drives his bulldozer towards the two hangars, which are side by side. On the left of a sheet metal hangar, on the right is the jail hangar. Citizens pursue him in jeeps, firing machine guns and rocket launchers. Wolverine drives the bulldozer into the narrow alley between the two hangars and plugs it up. The jeeps are blocked on the other side. Wolverine lights an oily rag with a cigar and sticks it to the gas tank. He rolls away just as the bulldozer explodes. Wolverine looks back at the fire, then dashes forward towards the rear entrance to the jail hangar. As he gets near, Atalanta drops down from the roof in the front of him. She lands squarely on 2 feet, blocking his way. She stares at Wolverine in shock.
You were dead.
I know. I'm feeling better.
She pulls 2 exotic dagger-sized tridents from hip scabbards. She stalks him.
Well, you're just in time for execution.
Yeah, but it's your funeral.
Wolverine lunges at her. She leaps over his head and lands behind him. She laughs. Cut to exterior execution chamber dawn. Technicians attach electrodes to the heads of the X-Men. Cut to exterior between 2 hangars dawn. Atalanta throws an explosive sphere at Wolverine. He dodges and it blows a hole in the wall of the sheet metal hangar. Atalanta keeps throwing these little bombs, forcing Wolverine towards the hole in the wall. As Atalanta prepares to nail him with her last bomb, he dives through the hole into the hangar. Enter sheet metal hangar dawn. Atalanta dives into the hangar after Wolverine. They battle each other throughout the factory. It's a hyper-modern automated facility, the opposite of the volcanic steel mill of the popular imagination. Machines neatly squeeze, roll, and shape molten metal into thick sheets. Atalanta leaps into a strike. She leaps away for defense. She throws heavy objects. When she lands a punch, it does big damage. After all, she's about 10 times stronger than he is. She picks up Wolverine and hurls him across the factory. She then tries to finish him off. He flips her in front of the Titanic rollers that almost flatten her. At the last second, she leaps to safety. They lose sight of each other. Cut to interior execution chamber dawn. Cables are run from X-Men to the circuit breaker. Cut to interior sheet metal hangar dawn. Wolverine and Atalanta stalk each other. He listens, stiffens, gets close. She has a cut. He sniffs her blood and leaps onto her unaware. They fight. Cut to interior execution chamber dawn. Technicians connect the last wires of the circuit breaker. In her pit, Kitty tearfully watches the procedure in the video monitor. Cut to interior sheet metal hangar dawn. Atalanta kicks Wolverine away. He lands on a long band of sheet metal. A fearsome high-tech laser cuts through the metal like butter. This thing could easily burn through Wolverine's skeleton. Atalanta leaps on top of Wolverine. They wrestle in the path of the approaching laser. Atalanta gets a good grip on Wolverine using her superior strength. She immobilizes him in the path of the laser. He struggles, but he can't get away.
Look at Wolverine beat up by a girl.
Cut to interior jail hangar dawn. Prince stands at a microphone in front of the bunker directly under the suspended light grid.
Sorry to get you up at this ungodly hour, but apparently you all appreciate the importance of this event. I don't want to turn this into a photo opportunity or a soundbite, so we'll just proceed with the execution.
The lights dim, Prince nods, and the darkened picture window becomes transparent. The audience can now see through it to the X-Men on the wall-lighted jail. They are lined up side by side, facing the front. The crowd starts to chant, Thomas Prince, Thomas Prince, Thomas Prince. Interior X-Jail dawn. The X-Men see only themselves in the mirror, but they can hear the crowd roaring Thomas Prince. It makes them feel, if possible, even more defeated. Cut to interior sheet metal hanger dawn. The laser gets closer and closer. It's going to slice through Wolverine's neck. He struggles to squirm out of Atalanta's hold. He starts to free up one arm. Cut to interior X jail. The executioner goes over to the large U-shaped switch on the circuit breaker. The X-Men face their images in the mirror. Cut to interior sheet metal hanger. The laser gets closer. Wolverine gets his arm a bit freer. Cut to interior X jail. The executioner takes hold of the switch and gets ready to pull it down. Cut to interior sheet metal hanger. The laser is 6 inches from Wolverine's neck. He gets his arm free. Shink! He plunges his claws into the box of the wiring alongside the laser gun. Sparks shower like fireworks around Wolverine's claws. The laser stops moving. Wolverine twitches, jerks, convulses. He's being electrocuted. Atlanta, holding him, is frying along with him. The lights in the factory flicker. Cut to interior jail hangar. The lights also flicker here. Prince looks up at the lighting grid. He shouts into the microphone.
Pull the switch!
Through the window, we see the executioner pull the switch, and as he does, the circuits short out. The jail hangar is plunged into darkness. The crowd gasps. Cut to interior X jail. The X-Men hopes soar, but cut to interior sheet metal hangar. This hangar is also dark. Wolverine and Atalanta lie in the silent, deathly embrace of a pool of light from a skylight. The machines are still. Cut to interior jail hangar. The crowd murmurs nervously. Prince speaks to his technicians. He stands in a pool of light from a similar skylight above him. Cut to interior X jail. The X-Men wonder what will happen next. Cut to interior sheet metal hangar on Wolverine, eyes open. Then, with effort, he shoves Atalanta to the side. Cut to exterior jail hangar day. Hordes of citizens surround the hangar on alert to prevent Wolverine from breaking in. Cut to interior jail hangar. Prince addresses the crowd.
If you'll be patient for just a minute, we'll proceed with the execution.
Crash! The skylight shatters. Wolverine drops from the ceiling in a shower of glass. Before Prince can attack, the lights in the hangar come back on. Wolverine sees the X-Men behind the wall of glass. He cannonballs through the two-way mirror. Interior X jail. The mirror shatters as Wolverine crashes through, revealing the world on the other side. In a whirlwind of action, Wolverine frees Jean, who telekinetically removes Cyclops' metal visor. Cyclops blasts Nightcrawler's cage to pieces. Jean levitates Kitty out of her pit. Wolverine dashes over to Xavier.
Where's Jason?
Dead. He tried to kill the prince.
Wolverine seems sad as he extracts Xavier from his cross and yanks out his IV tube.
We have to expose Prince. That's the key.
The interior jail hangar. The X-Men charge out of their jail into the platform with Prince. Prince doesn't use his power because he doesn't want to give himself away. The spectators are pressed back into their seats, terrified.
Game's over, bub.
Prince turns back to the audience, nervous but poised.
Everybody please stay calm. Officers, citizens, can I get some help up here?
Several citizens rush on stage. Wolverine dispatches them with his fists. Cyclops zaps the gun out of the hands of others.
Tell them the truth, Prince.
The truth came out in court.
She turns to the crowd and points at Prince.
He's a mutant.
The audience is outraged. They shout at her as she repeats herself.
Prince is a mutant!
Wolverine and Nightcrawler disarm a few more citizens who try to rush on stage.
Ignore them. They'll say anything to divide us. This is the first test of our resolve to...
While he speaks, Cyclops raises his visor. His beam severs the metal cable holding the lighting grid. The 5-ton device drops straight towards Prince. Instinctively, he raises his arm over his head as if to catch it. The lighting grid stops falling and hovers in midair a few feet above him. The audience gasps. Media eats it up.
My God, he's a mutant! He's a
He's a
mutant!
mutant.
Magnetically levitating the lighting grid, Prince realizes that he has betrayed himself. Hundreds of photo flashes behind him. He sees the fear and hatred on all the faces of his citizens. He turns to the X-Men.
Now they'll die too.
With a look of pure malice, Prince heaves with his empty arms, and the lighting grid flies over the audience. Spectators cower as the grid descends on them. Scott Cyclops blasts the device to scrap. Jean creates an invisible canopy to protect people from falling metal. Prince gathers the metal fragments into a whirlwind and sends it like a wave against the X-Men. The X-Men are buried by the metal debris. Spectators run in panic for the exits. Before they get there, all the doors slam shut on their own. Exterior jail hangar. The doors bolt shut from the outside, locking in the people. Interior jail hangar. Citizens and police now shoot at Prince. He deflects their bullets. Their guns fly out of their hands.
You want a death? See how you like it.
Prince raises his arms. The whole building starts to vibrate harder, harder. The stairs shake. The seats rattle. Metal beams sing. Rivets extract themselves from joints and rain down. The framework becomes loose. Girders fall. The hangar is coming apart. The audience panics. People fall. They are trampled by the mob. Xavier, Kitty stays with the professor.
I'll try to calm the crowd. Go outside and open the doors.
She runs off. Xavier is left alone. He composes himself and concentrates. The crowd starts to calm down. Exterior jail hangar. Kitty emerges from the wall and opens a door that was barred. People flood out. The X-Men emerge from under the pile of metal. As they prepare to attack Prince, metal pieces wrap around their limbs. Kitty squeezes into the arena against the crowd. Prince sees her. Pieces of metal immediately wrap around her wrists. Prince gestures and the X-Men rocket across the hangar. Wolverine crashes into the crowd, toppling many. Scott Cyclops, his point of view flying towards a wall. He blasts a hole in the wall and flies through the hole. He lands outside. Jean makes a soft landing with her force field. Kurt Nightcrawler tumbles and flips and lands on his feet on a girder up near the roof. Kitty phases through a girder and grabs onto a giant American flag. She hangs precariously from the fabric. Prince laughs as he brings the temple down on the Philistines. Cyclops stands back in the hangar. He aims his beam at Prince. Prince is thrown back 20 feet. He directs a girder at the Cyclops. Cyclops blasts it. Prince and Cyclops. Prince hurdles more girders and pieces of the roof at the Cyclops, who deflects it one by one. Kitty's falling down the flag. Nightcrawler sees that she's in danger. He looks around. How to help? He sees a long cable hanging from the roof, tied up near him. It won't get him there. And from another cable midway to Kitty. Kitty. She slips down the flag, and the flag rips. Nightcrawler. He swings on the first cable. He lets go. He flies through the air with the greatest ease, a long, long way, but he'll never reach the other cable. And he's falling, but grabs the cable at the last moment. His weight tears it loose, and it goes on the second leg of his swing. He swooshes alongside Kitty, scoops her up under her arm, and carries her to the ladder on the wall. Kitty is so flabbergasted that all she can do is kiss him on the lips. Prince fuses several X crucifixes in midair into a large slab, and the slab flies at Cyclops. Cyclops and Jean together use their powers to save Scott Cyclops from getting crushed. The metal slab sparks from heat and impact. A battle of wills. Prince magnetically pushes the slab. Scott, Cyclops, and Jean try to force it back. The duel is depleting them all. Nightcrawler sees people trapped on a balcony that's about to collapse. He swings over to help them. At first, they are afraid to accept his help. He grabs a frightened child and swings him to safety. When the others realize the Nightcrawler's intentions are good, they jockey for position. He begins ferrying them to safety. Cyclops' point of view, the metal slab bearing down on him. Xavier watches the scene with his eyes closed. Cyclops and Prince. The metal slab forces himself closer and closer to Cyclops. He's about to be crushed against the wall. Jean sends a little rivet hurtling at Prince. It strikes him in the eye. He falters, then sends a rain of rivets hurting back at Jean and knocks her. Nightcrawler Prince sends rivets flying at Kurt. He's also knocked unconscious. Cyclops is now frightened, fighting off the slab by himself. It bears down on him. Closer, closer, closer. Kitty stands petrified on the ladder.
Kitty,
Kitty looks around and sees no one.
Scott's in trouble. Distract the prince. Do anything you can.
Xavier dissolves. Kitty scurries down the ladder. Wolverine drags himself next to Scott Cyclops between the metal slab and the wall.
Get out of here.
You'll be crushed.
I'll recover.
Wolverine kicks Scott Cyclops away. Scott Cyclops sags, depleted. Kitty rushes across the hangar to the stairs leading up to the platform. Tired, she tries to pass through a security fence. She bounces off. She tries again, can't phase. She goes around to the other side of the doorway. She has to stop and open the door. Prince reconfigures the metal slab into a wedge. The wedge is aimed at Wolverine's neck. Wolverine crouches to prevent himself from being decapitated, which just might kill him. In the process, he's slowly squashed. Prince digs deep inside for the energy to finish off Wolverine's once and for all. Kitty arrives on stage. She has no weapon. Desperate, she barrels right into the prince, knocking him over. Wolverine, the wedge falls straight down without crushing him. Wolverine leans against the wall, half dead. Prince lies on the floor, depleted. Wolverine drags himself to his feet and staggers towards the platform. Prince sees Wolverine coming. He gets to his feet, gestures, and Kitty's metal wristbands pulls her into his grasp. Another piece of metal flies around Kitty's neck and cinches tight. She tries to phase, but she can't. Wolverine leaps into the stage and steps towards Prince.
Stay away.
Wolverine keeps coming. Kitty's necklace tightens. Prince tries to force him back magnetically, but Wolverine keeps coming, like fighting a strong wind.
I'll kill her.
Wolverine keeps coming. Kitty gags.
I'll do it.
Wolverine is only a step away. Kitty can't breathe.
Kitty, face!
Without hesitation, Wolverine plunges his claws through Kitty into Prince. Kitty's eyes widen. Wolverine lifts Prince up off the ground. Kitty is not lifted with him. Her necklace clanks to the floor. Wolverine holds Prince above his head, impaled. Shink! Wolverine retracts his claws. Prince's dead body drops to the floor at his feet.
One dead body. Now we're even.
Jean and Scott. Scott helps Jean to her feet. She's still a little wobbly.
Are you all right?
Hold me.
He puts her arms around her. She kisses him. He returns the favor with enthusiasm. They break their embrace.
Now I'm all right.
He kisses her again. Kurt is surrounded by people he saved. A man gratefully shakes Kurt's three-fingered hand. An attractive reporter looks at him with admiration.
You're an amazing athlete. Have you ever considered a professional career?
Not really.
You should.
Wolverine and Kitty. Kitty stands next to Wolverine. He puts his arm around her.
How'd you know I'd phase?
Mattered.
Xavier. The governor hesitantly approaches Xavier.
Excuse me, Professor. I think we owe you an apology.
Xavier smiles at the governor, gratified. Dissolve due, exterior X-Mansion day. The X-Men are packing up vehicles with luggage. Kurt is sitting in a Jeep with the attractive reporter. Jean and Scott are loading luggage into the trunk of a car for beach vacation. Wolverine is carrying a wilderness backpack. A taxi driver puts Kitty's suitcase in the trunk. Xavier rolls out without his saying anything. The activity stops and everybody turns to him with dread.
President just called.
Excitement.
He wants to meet with us right away.
Groans.
What did you tell him?
I said we'd call him when you get back from vacation.
Cheers.
Have a good time.
Jean kisses Xavier on his bald head.
You're the best.
She and Scott get in their cars and drive off honking.
Bye, everybody.
Kitty's cab pulls up next to Kurt's Jeep. She rolls down the window and looks jealously at his girlfriend.
Don't have too much fun.
You coming back?
Wouldn't miss it.
Kurt winks. The Jeep and the taxi drive off. Wolverine and Xavier are the only ones left.
You gonna be okay?
Oh, I've lived alone for years.
I'm heading up to the woods. Gonna scatter Jason's ashes.
Xavier nods sympathetically.
It's funny. Not everybody loves us.
Don't expect it to last.
Who, me? I don't expect nothing from nobody.
They shake hands. Wolverine walks off towards the woods. After a few steps, he turns around.
But every now and then, somebody surprises me.
Professor Xavier smiles and waves. Wolverine smiles back and waves. Wolverine walks into the trees. Xavier turns his chair around and rolls inside, and the door closes on the Xavier School for Gifted Youngsters. The end.
And that was the glad to not be made X-Men movie. I don't know what this script was. This was the weirdest fucking thing I've ever. Anyway, thank you all so much for joining us, and we'll see you at the next one.